Hi folks, it's Neil here. A bit of a different show today. Basically, we took our recording equipment along to a couple of events that we recently attended. One being the Lardy Day in St Albans, and the other being Hereward Wargames Show. And we basically turned up, see who came along to chat to us, and recorded what was said. So we've got a mix of interviews today, some with well-known games companies and rules producers, like Too Fat Lardies and Simon Miller, for example, and others with just you, the podcast listener, who happened to turn up at Hereward and popped over and said hello. And we've got some lovely little interviews in that as well. So something a bit different. Hope you enjoy it. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Too Fat Lardies, Miniature Wargames magazine, and by you, the listener. So I'd like to say a huge thank you for the donations of Glenn Oberhauser, Alex McIntosh, and Frank Reynolds. Guys, thank you so much. Your support helps make this show possible. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 158. Lardy Day and Hereward Wargames Show, with hosts Neil Shuck, Dave Luff, Mike Hobbs and Mike Whitaker, and a whole host of guests. Hello and welcome to another episode of Meeples on the Road. I'm Neil Shuck and I'm with Dave Luff. Hi Dave.
Hello.
And we're currently on our way to a Lardy Day down in St Albans. So we're going down for the day. We're not too sure exactly what we're going to be playing yet or getting involved in, but the hope is we're going to go down during the day, get a couple of games in, see what's going on in all the world of Lard, have a chat with Rich and Nick, and then we'll let you know all about what's happened. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back we'll be chatting with Rich, Nick and the guys from Too Fat Lardies.
I don't like it, Sergeant. Me neither, sir. Good Lord, it's really looking pretty bad. Yes, sir. It happens every time, sir. It's too predictable, sir. How far do you think we've advanced, Sergeant? 6 inches, sir. It's always 6 inches. We advance 6 inches, then Jerry gets a go. The lads are calling it Hi-Go-Hugo, sir. Hi-Go-Hugo? Good grief. And they don't like it, sir. Oh. Not like it? Seems pretty straightforward to me. Rather like cricket. We have an innings, then the other chap does. Well, that's all very well, sir, cricket, sir, but begging your pardon, it ain't like that, sir, in war. I don't think Mr. Hitler plays like that. What, Hitler? No, gosh, he'd like to go all the time. Oh, Lord, sir, lummy. Oh. Well, sir, anyway, sir, it's like this, sir. If it carries on like this, Hi-Go-Hugo, me and the lads won't be coming to your Thursday evening games club, and that's the way it is, sir.
Looking for more of a challenge with your World War II games? Are you tired of the predictability of Hi-Go-Hugo systems? Iron Bean Shopman provides real command challenges on an unpredictable battlefield.
Too Fat Lardies, playing the period and not the rules since 2002. Pip pip.
Well, here we are. It's Meeples on the road, and myself and Mr. Luff. I've been down in St Albans and we've caught up with the Lardies. Hello, guys. We've got Rich and Nick, and joined by Sidney. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Yeah, good.
Good. Oh, great to be down here for the day. Nick, do you want to explain what everybody's just missed?
Okay. Well, what we've just missed, what we've all enjoyed for the last 8 hours or so, is lots of cake, lots of cake intermixed with some good quality games. So we've had the Games Day that we've called it. We haven't done anything on this scale for a little while. We used to have themed Games Days where people would come. We'd have Calais 1940, Stalingrad, etc. But today we just had a general game. People come along, play a game that they want to bring or to share. So we've had 4 games this morning, 3 games this afternoon, 20 odd guys just getting to play whatever bit of lard they fancy having a go at.
Cool. And I understand this is where it all started, you were saying earlier.
This is where it all started. I first came here in the early 1980s and walked into a game that the guys were doing down the road, which was a medieval skirmish using your old ships, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Built them out of plywood. I don't know what happened to them. They were nice.
I think they just got trashed along so much.
Probably, yeah, that's right. You make all these intricate things like ships with nice balsa wood masts, really knowing that as soon as you put them in storage, all the masts are going to go and it's all going to get wrecked. But I do remember the game. It was a good game, actually. Yeah. Didn't you shoot an arrow at somebody that set cow on fire?
No. There was some guy who was running from the village to the hill outside of town to light a beacon.
Yeah.
And from the forecastle of the ship, I shot him with an arrow and killed him from a long-range fluke shot. And that was the last piece of luck I had on the Wargames Show.
What was that, 1980?
Yeah, that was 1983 or something like that. So not that I've...
You can dine out on that story for many a year to come.
Yeah. Well, it clearly has. 32 to be precise.
Oh, so outside of Lyle Island, this is your local club venue then?
Yeah. Not the room that we've just been in, but the room next door. Put stuff away. Yeah, we've been meeting here since this place was originally refurbished and done up. So it's saw the genesis of lard when we Nick and I first sort of got together as a sort of a rule writing team. Yeah. And this is where we meet every week, not as a club, but really just as a development group, and work through different ideas in a sort of semi-game, semi-workshop environment. But yeah, this is where it all happens.
Well, it's been a while since we've had a chance to catch up. So I just wondered, so what is going on in the land of lard at this point in time? I know we were hearing a lot about fighting season, and obviously we saw that at Salute, and we've seen that today. But we've also seen more recently, we've seen you tweeting an awful lot about playing sharp practice. And
yeah, I've had a lot of domestic issues. My mother-in-law had a stroke, and it's meant she's had to go into care, and it's meant that in order to cover the costs of the care home, which are kind of astronomical, I've been really off work doing her house up, really getting all that building work done. So fine, so I kind of was out of the picture. Yeah. So one of the guys here has got a really fantastic Napoleonic collection. So he said, look, why don't I crack on with Sharp Practice 2? And so I got him the nuts and bolts of where we were with that project. Right. And that's something he's been running with, which is why you've seen me when I'm having a day off from digging cesspits in the garden or re-tiling the roof. I get to come down here and the guys have been running out the rules and seeing how they're doing. So I've kind of been out of the loop and let them get on with it. So Sharp Practice 2 is the thing that's whizzed through to the fore, as we saw today. The game of fighting season we played this afternoon is the first game of fighting season I played since June. Right. Because I've just been completely out of the frame. So it was great to get back into that, and especially by halfway through the game I'd kind of remembered how the rules worked. Which is always an issue.
Kind of, though, isn't it?
But Yeah, so it's all been a bit chaotic. So our schedule of what we were hoping to have published has completely gone out the window. We were intending for fighting season to be ready in sort of August, and then with a view to Sharp Practice 2 coming along at Christmas.
Right.
But I've literally just got back to work this week. I've just produced Operation Martlet, which is our 4th pint-sized campaign for Chain of Command, which was I really enjoyed working on, having been completely isolated from the business for so long. It was great to get back into that and get that published. But this is really the first time I've been back at my desk in the last week. Yeah. So I'm kind of now having to take stock of what's going on and reassess exactly where we're going to put the emphasis going forward.
So in the ideal world, Rich, which do you see coming first next is the next big project for Live that's going to actually hit the printing press?
I don't know.
In your ideal world, if everything went...
In my ideal world...
What would you like to see out next, as in...
Fighting season followed by Sharp Practice. The issue for me is that having been out of the loop with fighting season now for 4 or 5 months, I need a period of getting back into that. I mean, effectively, fighting season, the rules are finished. But what I haven't had a chance to develop through, which I want to, is the campaign system, which is an integral part of what fighting season is all about. I don't think that fighting season would be the product that I wanted to release if it doesn't contain the campaign system, because it's such a key part.
So fighting season, what you're saying here, it works more as a campaign game rather than a standalone game. Really, the campaign is sort of...
The campaign generates the missions as you go forward. So it's one of those things which is based on the gathering of information, then using that information to put together a profile of what's happening in your operational area, and then using that intelligence data to identify who are the people who you need to remove from the situation, who are the people you need to work with to make the situation better. I personally think that without that, I don't think you would get to appreciate the full spectrum of what is involved for troops on the ground in Afghanistan.
I think the reason it's important is that it drives the way players behave when they play the tabletop game.
Yeah.
If you play a tabletop game in isolation, there's certain things that you might do, certain things you might push that you would not do in a campaign situation. So to have that campaign there and realise that these games don't exist in isolation, these engagements are part of a wider tour, is a crucial part of the way we want the game to develop, the way we want people to experience and play the games.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely hit the nail on the head. I mean, ultimately, you can take any game as a standalone game in isolation, and you can play it in an Afghanistan scenario where the coalition forces go in all guns blazing and do a Rambo. But within a campaign situation, you will very quickly realise that is not the way that you need to do it. It has to be, your approach and strategy has to be more nuanced, and it's about getting people on side as much as it is about killing people.
So a player, say halfway through a game, could then start considering about withdrawing and taking the option that's going to give him, even if he thinks, well, it might be a better of two evils.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the demonstration game that we put on today was really just to give you an indication of what the mechanism's about. What I don't think it did effectively is give you a view of how the campaign system will work, because it's a one-off game. Just a game to show you how the mechanisms differed from Chain of Command World War II. I think that certainly once you've played a couple of games, or once you've fully understood how you set your own objectives for the Taliban player as you were, you make a decision, okay, am I going to go in hard and maximise the amount of support I'm going to get, but that's going to set me a bit of a mountain to climb, or am I just going to go in with the attempt to give them a bloody nose and then disappear off because it's going to give me some enhanced kudos? I get the civilians to run away so they're not going to speak to them and get that information. So there's different levels of objectives that you as the insurgent commander can set yourself, and that then determines what sort of tactics you're going to use to play them.
So generally, normally you're playing over the same sort of table for each part of the campaign?
Well, certainly in the campaign the campaign setting that we've been using in our games has been basically a Hellmanned province thing. So you've got a green zone area. What the campaign system includes is a table generation system. So that's going to allow you to get quite a bit of variety in terms of the way the terrain's working. You can be in a green zone where it's very fertile. You're by the river. It can be out of green zone where it's slightly less fertile. But that's the sort of environment you're going to be operating in, and that the table generator then is going to throw up different nuances. But yeah, I mean, largely the fighting that's happening in Helmand is in the green zone. If you were looking at a different region, if you look at one of the American areas, you could be in a mountainous zone, and that terrain generator will be different for that area.
Yeah. So, ideal world, it would come first. However, in a non-ideal world, and
right. So
reality. Reality.
Right.
Okay. Let's take a step back for a second, because obviously we talked about sharp practice too, and maybe a lot of people may not know exactly what's happening with that. So, because we mentioned before, is sharp practice still your biggest selling set of rolls?
Oh yeah, by a long stretch.
So why do you need a second edition?
Because I have been working on some of the ideas that are in there that I think, there's stuff in there that I feel that we could. What I wanted to do was streamline some of the mechanisms.
Right.
Because sharp practice covers quite a lot of different weapons and quite a lot of different range bands, and you cannot really play sharp practice without referring to the quick reference sheet on the back of the rules. Now, the reason that QRS is on the back of the rules is that it's there so it's completely accessible. You should just be able to put the rules down and just really follow what you want to follow through looking at that. Okay. But I thought, well, there's a lot of differing range bands which aren't particularly easily memorised. And this goes back to the thing I always talk about, which is, the more points of contact you have with the rules, the more you end up playing the rules and not the period, as a wise man once said. So what I'm trying to do is make the mechanisms more streamlined so that you can memorise them and you don't have to refer to the rules. So let's have a look at chain of command. It's fairly simple. There are two range bands. Under 18 inches, you hit on 4, 5 and 6, and over 18 inches you hit on 5 and 6. You don't need to look at a quick reference sheet for that. Once you play the game once, you know it. Once you get a hit and you're in the open, 3 and 4 is shot, 5 and 6 is a kill, 1 and 2 is nothing. Again, it's a mechanism that's very, very simple and very streamlined, and you don't have to referring to things. So the original point was, can I make this a bit more streamlined? Are there things that I can do to make this more easily memorised, so that people have fewer points of contact with the rules? So from that, I then looked at certain areas where I thought could introduce some of the aspects of the chain of command dice, but without using chain of command dice.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things we've done there is use certain mechanisms with the grass the nettle concept, similar in a way to the Carpe Diem concept, which is in Dax Britanniarum, whereby you can use them in a number of different sequences to achieve different things. So it just makes the game a bit faster and a bit more streamlined. And I think there's some very significant changes in the rules, but when you play it, it still feels very much like sharp practice, which I think is key, because sharp practice is all about the characters on the tabletop.
Yeah.
It's not about there are no cards in there for units, so it's not like I'm in Shotman where platoon number 2 is activated. This is all about the leaders. This is all about Richard Sharp or Flashman or whoever. So the cards in there are purely the cards for the leaders. So we really want to keep that emphasis on the personalities and the characters, because that's what creates the fantastic narrative.
Yeah.
But certain issues are in there in terms of using the cards to circumvent the order of play. So, for example, if you've got a couple of Grass the Nettle cards which are hanging about that have been dealt and you've got them, you could then use them to interrupt play and activate a unit that hadn't been activated, not a leader, a unit.
Yeah.
So you're not getting the benefits that a leader can give you, but the unit is still able to activate. If you've got 3 or 4 Grass the Nettle cards that are in play, you can then activate leaders, or even get a bonus activation for a leader. So it's actually making it a little bit more flexible and giving you a lot more command decisions to make. because if you're using a grass the nettle card, if the grass the nettle cards are in play and the turn ends on a tipping card, you can use however many grass the nettle cards that you have of your suit to activate units that have yet to be activated. So that means that you can leave those grass the nettle cards for a benefit at the end of the turn, or you might want to spend them sooner to get an advantage immediately.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to. One of the things that I like in rules, and I'm trying to introduce, is those choices. Do I want a benefit now, or do I want to leave it for a bigger benefit later? So it's very similar to what we've seen in fighting season today.
I was going to say that's a massive difference in fighting season, isn't it? That's,
So it's taking the small win, but an immediate one, or waiting and getting potentially the bigger win, but maybe it's too late by that point. So it's just adding a different level of command decision, which I think makes it a bit more interesting.
Okay, but that's still staying as a card activation system. It's not.
But as I say, it's a slightly different card activation system to what we've got with the current Sharp practice, which is just leader 1, leader 2, leader 3, leader 4, leader 5, leader 6, and it plays through in whatever order you deal the cards.
Yeah.
It gives you a few more opportunities to buck the trend, buck the system, and decide to do different things.
Well, I think speaking as a mainly perhaps as a player, people like that game within the game. I mean, we did that with Dex Britanniara with the cards. That was really popular. And with things like that balance that you have with not only thinking about your troops on the tabletop and where they're deployed, but actually how you manage your cards, or you manage the different assets within your hand or on your side. People like that. You know, that's something that ensures that the game is always active, that you're always thinking about where you're best interrupting or best playing certain cards or certain assets.
I think it's that game within a game. It's an additional decision-making opportunity that's introduced.
Double-edged sword sort of decision-making.
That's right.
Which is what you do.
Yeah.
Which always gives the gamer that choice of, well, this could be the right thing, but then it might not be the right thing.
That's right. Well, I think that's quite fun. I think it's fun to give people choices that might go badly wrong and make them look an idiot.
And it's just taking the learning as well from what we've been doing over the last few years since Sharp Practice first came out, and thinking, actually, this is quite a smart way to do some stuff that we could use in Sharp Practice to strengthen it even more. So I think it's valid that we revisit it and just keep it fit for purpose and keep it sharp.
Ho ho.
Pun intended.
I don't think it was.
Right, so whereabouts are you as far as development on that's concerned at the moment?
Well, it's interesting actually because I haven't got a bloody clue. I'm so much up in the air at the moment. I literally am. I'm just back at my desk. I've got to make a decision. Obviously, it's going to be either we go with Sharp Practice first or we go with fighting season first. I just really am so punch drunk from the train that's run over my life for the last 6 months that I'm kind of I just kind of need to take a break and go, right, what's it going to be? And there's people I need to talk to about it as well, because obviously lots of people have been involved in the development process of both those rule sets. And I really need to sit down with them and talk to them. I need to talk to Lee down in Australia, who's obviously been the prime mover behind fighting season. I need to talk to the lads here and say, right, where precisely do we think they are? So that's a decision that I'm going to have to be making in the next week. But, as I say, having just got back to my desk this week and having had a games day this weekend to kind of prepare for, it's like, oh no, but now I'm kind of thinking, right, okay, Monday morning I'm going to sit down and put my thinking cap on.
Okay, going back, obviously, as I say, this week we released Operation Bartlett, which is brilliant, by the way. I had to look at it and, looking forward to having a go at Dave's armour on the table.
Oh, you kept it to yourself, have you?
It's £3.60, mate. You can afford it.
I did tell you about it, but you were too interested in beating me up with your powers again on Thursday. But it does hint at it. But it does hint in Operation Bartlett that you've got a forthcoming second campaign on Epsom.
Yeah,
and actually, it just kind of actually made me wonder. What's your development process as far as the campaign systems are concerned? Because I mean, obviously, going through stuff and knowing just how much research you put into these things and what have you. What's how many have you potentially got in the works, or is that giving too much away?
No, that's fine.
And what sort of thing can we be expecting to see?
Epsom is something I'm keen to follow up with fairly soon, because having spent so much time doing research on Martlet, you can't research Martlet without also be researching Epsom, because the two operations are tied in so closely. And I've always been interested in Epsom. I think it's we did an Epsom campaign with Ian Shopman some years ago. Just a campaign at the club, not one. I think it might have been in one of the specials. I can't remember. Anyway, so that's happening. I've also got Cherkasy Pocket, Kursk, with Groß Deutschland attacking on the southern front of the Kursk offensive, and one on Kohima as well. Excuse me, in the Burma, India front. So
that sounds something very different, which you haven't done before.
Yeah, that's right. I'm quite keen to. One of the things that I am working hard on is rolling out all of the lists which should have been out, but because of the train crash of my life recently, haven't been out, are all the basic lists which are going to be free downloads. So I mean, we worked our way through up to about 1942, 43 already. So I just want to finish them off and get together the huge, complete master armoury list for all the different AFBs and things like that. They're going to be a free download. But obviously hand in hand with that is developing the pint-sized campaigns, because that gives us an opportunity to look at slightly different forces. So, for example, the German force that we've got in Martlet is a bit more of a Kampfgruppe with a bit of attached armour and whatever. So those I think are never going to be your off-the-peg force that you're going to use, but they're quite an interesting little force that suit that pint-sized campaign format very well. So there's lots of stuff there. I mean, there's almost unlimited amount of stuff that you could produce in the pint-sized campaign format. And the more I look at Martlet and Epsom, those operations around Caen were so critical that I was thinking it might be nice to do a whole Battle for Caen series of pint-sized campaigns, looking at all sorts of different operations.
I mean, there is so much in there.
There is so much in there, and the same thing on the American side of things. I'm really keen to do a lot of those operations out, heading towards Cherbourg, cutting across to Barneville-Carteret, where they're moving across the peninsula there. There's so many fantastic operations in Normandy, you can almost spend your whole life just writing scenario supplements for Normandy. And the great thing about Normandy is I collect Second World War vintage maps, and I've kind of got the whole of Normandy covered. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm researching it is draw the maps up and then follow what is happening on the maps, so I understand exactly what's happening on the battlefield, or as much as you can. And then, as you know, those maps are included where you put the position, with all the positions of the units are mapped and so on and so forth. So that's the great thing about Normandy, because all of that information is I've got in my library on Lard Island. And again, the first pint-sized campaign we did was following the 29th Infantry Division on that first push through to Isigny. I'd really like to follow the 29th Infantry Division right the way through and follow their career through into Germany. But by the end of the war. So there's different ways of doing it. You can focus on one unit and follow its career right the way through, or you can take one theatre and focus on the battles in that area. But there's no limit to it, really, which is fun. That's part of my job that I really enjoy the most, is to be able to take one specific action and analyse it and research it as much as possible to understand what's going on, and then produce a pint-sized campaign which kind of pays for all the ridiculous number of books that I bought in order to do the research. It's not a particularly good business model, to be honest. But I enjoy it, so solid.
Of course, noticed that you said this week that you've actually got a reprint of Chain of Command.
Yep.
That's really good news, because I seem to remember at one point you turning around and going, well, I've got these 2 pallets of rules turned up, I've sold one, but I'm not quite sure what's happening with the other one. So
no more sticky labels then?
No more sticky labels. 5,000 sticky labels later, I'm sticky label free.
Right.
Page 16 or whatever it was. But it's, that's been good to
so it's going well
back in,
So Churchill isn't small anymore then?
Yeah, it's not actually. No, I even put that one right.
Yeah.
Well, there's some small Churchills out there. The Churchill coupe. But so all those silly little mistakes that you tend to get, the couplers, there was an of instead of an if, or an if instead of an of, and just bits and pieces, gives you a chance to tidy them up. But we just took delivery of the new print run this week, so thank God we can stop sticking stickers in.
Fantastic. So, as I say, assumingly it's been going really well. So that's really good news.
Chain of Command really just goes from strength to strength, to be honest with you. I mean, we're certainly seeing.
Have you had any interesting downloads or sales of the rule book to some far-off zone of the world? Do you know of?
Well, I was amazing. I found a Chain of Command fan site in Russian the other day when I was just doing a general look around, and they've got a whole Chain of Command forum in Russian. It's fantastic. I haven't got a clue what they're saying because it's all in Cyrillic. There might be a whole forum saying how bad it is, but no, it does. We keep thinking, right? Okay, well, there you go. It's kind of it's done well, and then all of a sudden we get another surge through.
Because we discovered, didn't we? You had a listener in Iran or somewhere recently.
Yeah.
And it's like, and when these things sort of pop up, you think, oh wow, someone's listening in Iran. Or I just wondered if you had a similar thing
I did find that somebody on Twitter yesterday was following me from Syria, which did trouble me a bit, to be honest, especially when I looked at his photograph. It troubled me slightly more. But there we are. Hi, if you're listening.
Now, Nick, you mentioned something to me in the comment. Yeah, you mentioned something to me in the comment.
I thought you might mention this. Go on.
That you got your lanterns out again.
Yeah, well, the plan is that I'm going to get the lanterns out
for the lads.
That's some more game of euphemism.
Right. Okay. Now, to fill people in, this was Evesham a couple of years ago.
Last year.
Was it last year?
Yeah.
Was it only last year?
Only last year.
Oh, I think. You had a Kiss Me Hardy game, and then some crazy Welshman turned around to you and said, "Would you like to do a second edition of this?"
Wouldn't be the
yes,
Welsh Wizard.
The Welsh Wizard.
The Welsh Wizard. I think. Who was subjected to a game of Kiss Me Hardy at that event, and moaned at me so much during the course of the game, saying we should do another version, we should update it, etc., etc. And under the weight of his Welsh optimism, I kind of said, "Yeah, you're right. We should take a look at it at some point."
At some point,
yeah.
And now, nearly 2 years later, he's taking a look.
So we've got some ideas. Really, it's taken 2 years to generate some new thinking,
right?
But we've got some ideas that we'd like to play around with in terms of how we do damage. The big thing with Kiss Me Hardy is the ship record keeping, really. So we want to do some stuff to improve on that. So we've got some ideas around it, and we're going to get the ships out to give it a go. That's all I'm saying.
So yes, Easter at some point.
Yeah, some Easter. See, we love KMH. And funny enough, I was talking to Dr. Daz today about in 2005 we did the Trafalgar refight here. And Daz also did the Austerlitz refight.
He did,
We fought Trafalgar. Sydney there played the French Admiral. And using Kiss Me Hardy, we refought the battle almost in 1-to-1 time. So the first shot in the game was fired at around noon. by the time the ships closed, and then the game finished with the end of the battle at about 4:30. So we re-fought it almost 1-to-1 scale through the day.
And did you lose
game, wasn't it?
Not almost 1-to-1 scale. It was 1-to-1.
It was exactly 1-to-1 scale. To the second.
We lost again, but we didn't lose as badly as the French did in the real thing. But it was very, very difficult to win as the Franco-Spanish against
me. That's the problem. You were against me.
Well, it was very Trafalgar in the refight. We normally ended up doubling up the French or the Spanish fleet against each British ship, but the British ships were just really, really strong. So we did significantly better than Villeneuve did, but we did nowhere near enough damage to win.
That's not how I recall it at all.
Yeah, it was as close run as the real thing was. But we had 60 ships on the table. Basically split into two actions, so we had Nelson's column ho-ho and 2 puns in one section. We had Nelson's column and we had Collingwood's column squadron fighting, and the outcomes were historically accurate. Really pleased with it, and the fact that we could do it on 1-to-1 time with so many ships on the table, with about 8 guys all playing an active part. It's proof of principle really for KMH. So it's great that we could do that. I'd love to ride a bit more of that wave with it really, get it out a bit more and do some new stuff with it. So again, to apply some of our thinking in the 10 years or so.
It's what we were just saying about sharp practices. Just trying to make it more streamlined, trying to make it as much fun with the same feel, but just more streamlined.
Yeah, I mean it's never going to be a mass market for. Games, but
another crazy commercial suicide project. We're really good at them,
But it is one of those ones that people come up at shows and they do talk to you about. KMH often comes up in conversation, being something people will say, "Oh, we really enjoyed that. Are you going to do another version?" And so, when you've got enough Welshmen badgering you about doing that, then you have to eventually do something.
Well, he works it down eventually, doesn't he?
So he's the Welsh whinger now. Sorry, Mike. I do apologise.
Well, it's one of the W's.
Neil made me say that.
He's holding up a big placard.
With a selection of W's to choose from.
Given where we are, I suppose it's kind of... Because, normally a crisis sort of time is where you do crazy things like wander away and then discuss what you're going to do next. But I'm assuming at the moment it sounds like your diary is fairly full.
Oh my God, it's completely empty because I've had to cancel everything really with the domestic nonsense that's going on. I've even had to cancel Crisis. It's the one show that I would normally not cancel for anything. It's just haven't been able to do it this year. Yeah. So I'm kind of hoping that this year can finish, and then we can start a new one next year with all this stuff behind us and crack on. So it's just a time now for taking stock of where we are and then deciding, how we go forward. But it will be full steam ahead as soon as I've got my head around where the full steam's going to take us.
Well, guys, it's been great to catch up. Thank you so much for inviting us down today.
Good to see
you. I hope you enjoyed it.
No, it's been good. It's been good, and so hopefully we'll we can catch up a bit more soon. Say when either fighting season or shot practice comes out, whichever hits the finishing line first. We'd like to catch up with you again and have a close look at things.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, great to speak to you all.
Yeah,
and take care. We'll hope to catch up soon.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So we've just finished day at Lard, then it's at Albans, and we're on our way home. So, what do you think of the day then, Dave?
Yeah, it was a good day. It was a good turnout. Lots of different faces that really we've never seen before, which is always interesting.
Yeah, obviously, not being from anywhere near St Albans, obviously, different parts of the country attract different faces. But it was good to catch up with a few people. It was good to see Sid again.
Yeah,
and what have you, and we actually got to. Well, you got to play 2 games. I got to play half a game.
Well, you're claiming it's only half a game now. It doesn't count. You're saying you're a military advisor now. That's what you're saying, aren't you?
Yeah, something like that. I wasn't rolling many dice.
Yeah, you managed to roll consecutive turns several times.
What, for a change?
Yeah. So it's not impossible to do it, as you seem to think when you're around the Meeples bunker. It is.
Well, you see, different atmosphere, different place, different dice. That's That's the thing. So, first off, we got the game of Chain of Command. I just want to give a shout out to Dick Backs. He put on a lovely looking Chain of Command game in 20mm, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was interesting to see it in another scale. It sort of gives a similar ground scale to us playing in 15mm.
Yeah, it had a similar sort of feel. Now, this is a game apparently he's put on at conventions 8 or 10 times.
Nicely painted figures.
Oh, lovely. It was German Fallschirmjäger assault on a Dutch airfield,
which was very impronounceable. So
yeah,
I'm not going to say it. It had V's and Y's in it.
Yes, forgive us if we don't go into it any further, except for the fact to say, as I say, it was
a historical action.
Oh yeah, it was a historical action. Yeah, a Dutch militia versus German Fallschirmjäger.
No, militia. It was
militia.
Guards. Guards.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. The cream of the Dutch army.
Which would probably account for why the Germans lost.
Well, yeah, I say that they were the cream. They were well trained, but not that well equipped. Let's say.
Yeah, but suffice it to say that it went the way of the usual our usual encounters, or our most recent encounters in Chain of Command. But interesting game, as I say, and lovely scenery. It was a full custom board with the corner of an airfield and what have you. So lovely looking board. Hopefully you've seen the pictures on Twitter. But yeah, great game. So thanks to Dick for that. As we were playing the Chain of Command game, it's really interesting to notice there was a big Chain of Command game going on next door to us that Rich was running, which was all done in 28mm. I say big Chain of Command, that is, it was a platoon, and then it had they both had armoured troops. So there was 3 or 4 Panzer IVs, there was a troop of Shermans, the Churchill AVRE turned up at one point. Again, that was done in 28mm. We played our game in 20mm, and obviously, as you almost no doubt aware, we normally play our Chain of Command games in 15mm. And it was really interesting. One thing we really noticed is that looking at the game we were playing and the games that we normally play at home, and then looking over at the 28mm game. The 28mm game looked
busy.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking about the right word to use. It really looked kind of packed and cramped and crowded, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, we're used to playing a game where you have that open battlefield look, which is I think what one of the listeners said before about the games that we have. There's always plenty of room to move around on a 6x4 table when you're playing a skirmish game with 15mm figures.
Yeah, and certainly all of a sudden when you look at the same game being played in 28mm, it definitely does seem to compress the battlefield, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It was noticeable, counting the number of buildings they had on the table, and I think there was about 11 buildings or so on the table, and that kind of dominated the entire table. Whereas putting that in our game,
our current game's got about 11 on the table now, hasn't it?
That's it, and that takes up what, a third of the table?
I don't think it's even a third.
Yeah, but even so, putting that same terrain arrangement that they got there into 15mm and putting our table would probably take up a third of the table at most. And as I say, it completely dominated it in 28mm, and that makes life really interesting. Because one thing we have been talking about quite interestingly is how long it takes to play a Chain of Command game in 15mm. And there were times when it's taken us. Well, we normally end up playing over the course of 2 nights, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're probably taking a good 4 hours, shall we say, to get through a game. Now, admittedly, you know, we like to have a chat.
Rush, do we?
No, we don't. We don't play really quickly, and we have a chat about stuff and this, that, and the other as we're playing. So it's not the quickest game in the. It's never going to be the quickest game in the world anyway. Oh yeah, plus taking photos and tweeting it. It's amazing how much time that takes up. You know, it really does.
Yeah, I wouldn't thought it took that long to take a picture and tweet, but it eats into the game.
Yeah, it's amazing, but.
Move those dice, Dave. They're in the way of the picture. Oh, okay, now.
Yeah, I am probably that bad, actually.
No, you are that bad.
But yeah, we were talking about the fact that actually, you know, especially when you start playing the game back in 15mm, despite the fact that, okay, you know, all the ranges are the same and all the movements are the same. One of the things, like you were saying, Dave, isn't it, is the fact that actually, physically, you're moving over a lot more potentially moving over a lot more terrain.
Yeah, over the same area where you might just say have one hedgerow to cross, you could have 2 or 3 hedgerows at 15mm, just because of you've just got that much table that you can put extra terrain there. Simply because of the changing scale. As opposed to the changing ground scale, it is amazing what difference that makes to the look and feel of a Wargames table. Well, in the same area where you could get one building at 28mm, you could possibly get 3 buildings at 15mm.
Yeah, and obviously, yeah, as I say, that makes a difference. But it was just interesting anecdotally to note the difference and kind of see how our, especially, you know, we're now kind of fairly used to playing it in 15mm, and how our perceptions of how a table looks may have been influenced by that. I mean, you know, and especially I suppose with the fact that
what you're trying to say, Neil, is you like how we play, aren't you? That's what you're trying to say.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's interesting as well, because we play Ancients and Napoleonics in 6mm. So you end up in situations where, I don't know, we have things like flanks and stuff.
Flanks? What are they?
Yeah, even on a standard Wargames table. Whereas
we have flanks when we play on like a 2x3 table.
Yeah. That isn't necessarily the experience, especially if you play in larger scales. So, as I say, yeah, it was just interesting to note the difference. And obviously people know in the past I've been a huge fan of 40mm figures and playing in that sort of scale. And to be honest, as I say, I think I prefer the look and feel of what we've got at the moment. It does sound strange, but and I was initially reluctant to do skirmish gaming in 15mm, but I'm fully converted. I really like the look and feel, and as I say, this issue that we've had looking at this 28mm table and something kind of going, yeah, that looks really packed. I mean, obviously it's the same game, and people were just having, as much fun. It's just an aesthetics thing, isn't it?
Yeah. There's more area. There's more movement area as well. I think that's the other thing you get with 15mm. It's, you're not bumping into other units and other tanks. There's room to move.
Yeah, because, obviously with the smaller scales, tanks don't take up anywhere near as much room on the table and stuff. So yeah, there's it does make a big difference. It does make a big difference. We're not saying one is better than the other. It's just that we've just turned around and gone, aesthetically, actually, we quite like where we are at the moment. But something I never really thought I'd say playing a skirmish game. But there you go. And then in the afternoon, I sat and watched while you played Fighting Season.
Fighting Season. Very much a different beast, even though the mechanics are sort of similar. It's very, very different.
Indeed. Yeah. Lots of different things to do, lots of different decisions to make. Initially, you're kind of thinking, well, yeah, he's trying to command mechanics, but very, very different animal.
I mean, one of the big differences is with the chain of command dice, where you get a 6 will give you a chain of command, so you can do something with it. Now they're introducing that you can spend the individual pips, so you can save up for a 6, or you can start spending the pips for smaller little advantages on the table, which then you have to weigh up whether you want to go for the smaller ones or whether you want to save up for the big advantage.
And also, what is very apparent is even more so than normal chain of command, the forces are very, very different.
Yeah, they're very uneven. The British were very heavily overpowered compared to the Taliban forces.
Well, in your experience,
well, it's purposely designed to be like that because there's a different way of winning the game as the Taliban. You're looking for bad news to be sent home as a way of winning the game, rather than just causing casualties. There's a political side almost to the game.
And obviously, as you've heard from the interview that we had with Richard and Nick, the campaign system appears to be key, and obviously we haven't seen anything to do with that. All we've experienced today is just a one-off game, but really interesting to see what they've been doing with the mechanics. I mean, I suppose it also gives, it kind of gives an outline to potentially something different you could do with chain of command. Certainly when you start looking at other theatres, and then you look back and see what's been done with fighting season, that would kind of give you ideas to say, oh, right, okay, well, if you wanted to move chain of command to another...
it's ideally set for conventional force against guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
And that reflects it with the British being that strong. And the advantage, the Taliban have to use their hand. They have to play their hand in a hit and run sort of tactic that causes small amounts of losses towards the British, which eventually sort of grinds them down at home. As in, I don't think they've named the mechanic totally, have they, fully yet, of what it is? But it's going to be used, as in there was reports in the papers and so on and so forth, for damage that the British troops have done to, say, a farmer's house, or etc., etc.
Some form of collateral damage and what have you. As I say, it does give you a really good idea of just what can be done with the chain of command mechanics, what things can be done differently to adapt it to different conflicts. So that in itself is really interesting. Seeing what's out there and what you can do, and I mean, there's a lot of talk about putting chain of command into different conflicts, whether that be, I don't know, somewhere like Vietnam or what have you. So just looking at what's been done with fighting season can potentially give people an awful lot of ideas, as opposed to the flexibility of the rules.
There's a note to you, Neil. I mean, it sort of doesn't sometimes sit that well with me at times, but I mean, you've had more experience by actually talking to ex-servicemen, haven't you, with this? This game's very close to now.
Yeah.
And we're feeling the effects of this as a country, and obviously as individual servicemen are as well. And how's that sit with you personally?
Well, as opposed to gaming this modern gaming something for Afghanistan. I think it's interesting from I suppose it's almost like taking a step away from it. It doesn't necessarily bother me that much as far as gaming the conflict is concerned. And I know from anecdotal evidence of what's been said about other modern games that actually a lot of servicemen or ex-servicemen don't have a problem with gaming modern conflicts. It seems to be more an issue with those who haven't normal run of the mill people.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily have an issue with it. Maybe a lot of people will, and it's always a tricky one because, especially if you're gaming any sort of conflict, especially that's within living memory. I mean, I still know lots of people have issues with gaming, even down to World War II.
Yeah, well, I do. I mean, my grandfather's 91, and he was in special operations, and he talks to me about some of the stuff that his service saw, and sometimes I think, really, my grandfather knows what I do outside of work or job as such, and that part of my hobby is wargaming, and it's funny because it actually sits quite well with my grandfather for some reason. He feels quite happy that that's what I'm doing, and he's quite interested in what I'm doing as well, and then he tells me bits and bobs of information which you probably can't actually find in the history books, and you suddenly think, oh right, that's how it was done, was it?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, we were chatting about Operation Martlet, which is the latest point-sized campaign, which obviously included the Polar Bears, 49th Infantry Division. Angie, my wife, her great uncle was actually in the Polar Bears and was injured either during that or immediately prior to that particular attack. He was shot by a sniper, dropping off a Brengan carrier apparently. But yeah, it is interesting that, as I say, you got these things that you got conflicts going on within living memory, and some gamers have issues with that. And obviously, the more recent you get, whether that's Vietnam, whether that's Arab Israel, or as I say, what up to Iran and Afghanistan. At the end of the day, I think it's it's got to go to the individual, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you've actually had contact with servicemen that got in contact with you through the podcast to say that they play it.
Yeah. I mean, certainly I've heard that. I've heard, I mean, Gary Strombo, for example. Hello, Gary. Regular podcast listener is and has been out in served out in Afghanistan and is a war gamer and what have you. I think the issue, as opposed to whether you game a particular period or not, is something that probably sits less well. As I said, probably sits less well with, for want of a better phrase, the civilian population as it does with soldiers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
However, one thing I did find interesting is looking at some of the stuff that's started to be included in fighting season and stuff that happens, and you say it kind of brings it close to home. I mean, as it's supposed to, I think. Just the sort of stuff that our troops were up against and were having to consider, even in the most run-of-the-mill operation.
It makes you appreciate actually even more so what they're doing when you start. How Rich manages to sort of really get a tactical feel of what's going on through the research he does. You get a real feel about what they were up against and what they are up against.
Mm.
And you can appreciate it more.
Yeah,
if that's the right word to say.
Yeah. So, I mean, interestingly, I was having chatted to Sydney about it today. Sidney Roundwood. Hi, Sydney. Well, we were saying this sort of thing in the fact that she was saying, well, having gone through some playtesting and stuff, it's not a game he would choose to play under normal circumstances, but it certainly made him have an appreciation, and indeed, start ending up doing some background reading and looking into things a bit more, and obviously watching stuff on YouTube and various, but just doing some extra research and looking into the conflict. And we kind of both agreed that actually especially from an historical war games point of view, that's partly kind of what it's about. If you can get something that will engage you in something that you don't normally look into, and it piques an interest on another level other than just wargaming.
As it's sort of informing and educating.
Yeah. So it kind of and it piques it to that point of going, I'll look into that a bit more, or what have you. Then I think that's job done. Yeah. So looking forward to seeing that when it, as I say, when it does come out. It's very different, I think, in a lot of ways from the modern laws I've seen. I don't think I've seen Spectre, but it's very different from Skirmish Sanguine, for example. It's quite different from Force on Force and Ambush Alley. So I really think it's got its own little, it will have its own little niche in the market. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. But overall, really good day.
Yeah, it's a good day.
Good to catch up with people. And so interesting to see what's coming. As I say, interesting to see what's coming next. Lots of nice models and what have you. And so, again, huge thank you to Nick for organising the day and letting us come down at very short notice. Huge thank you to Nick for that. And thanks to the guys for putting on the day. It's been really fun. So hopefully we'll get to do this again soon.
The battles of fantasy to conflicts in space. Through all wars of history. This is the Meeples and Miniatures podcast.
Welcome to part 2 of the Meeples on the Road show. And last time around we were at the Lardy Day down at Albans. Now we've come across the country a bit more, and we're at Peterborough Wargames Show, and I'm with Mr. Hobbs.
Hello.
Yeah, we're here today. So, what's the plan, Mike? Because you're not here actually.
I'm not working.
Yeah, you're not working, are you?
I don't know what to do. I can actually go and stand at the store somewhere and help people. I think the plan is to
let's face it, you've already got involved in and helped unpack Ruben's store this morning.
he was looking very hassle, so I thought I'd get in the way and interfere. But I think the plan is to wander around, talk to a few people. There's lots of people here. It's a nice little show.
Yeah.
And play some games and have a laugh. And then I'm going to go back to the pub.
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan. Just to clarify, that's the inaugural Hereward Wargames Show, which we've been which Mike Whitaker especially has been banging on about every chance he's got on the podcast. Which you can't blame him since he's helped organise it.
Yep.
But there you go. But we'll be chatting to a few people today. We've got the opportunity to take part in the first outing of Sharp Practice 2.
Indeed, yeah.
Which we're going to look forward to. You never know. We might even get Rich back on the show. So having been on in the first half, he might end up getting on the second half as well. You never know. And we're hoping to get a chat with several people during the day, including the likes of Simon Miller, who's here, and what have you. And we've even got a roundtable discussion planned for this afternoon. So it'll be interesting to see who turns up. We'll chat back in a bit.
Yes, bye.
Well, we managed to bump into Andy Horse from Peterborough Club. Hello, Andy.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Really well today, thank you. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, so you're demoing new game from upcoming game from Osprey, yeah?
That's correct. Yeah, we're demoing The Men Who Would Be Kings, which is Osprey's colonial small unit action game, which is released in August 2016.
Right.
So this is the first official demo of the game anywhere publicly today.
Yeah.
So officially endorsed by Osprey and the author Dan Mersey as well. So that's good.
Okay, so how's it going?
really well. People seem to love the rules. They do seem to enjoy it. I mean, we're getting lots of comments about playability, good fun, simple mechanisms, tactical considerations at all points. It's a really easy game to engage with, we find.
Okay, so can you tell us, give us a 2-minute intro into the rules?
Yeah, I can tell you a bit about it. Yeah. I mean, basically, you've got it's small units. So you're typically talking about regular units of about 12 models.
Yeah.
Irregulars of 12 models, and then tribal units of 16.
Okay.
And cavalry are about 8 to 10 models per unit. So you've not got masses of models per unit. A typical army is 24 points, in keeping with Dan's usual Lion Rampart, etc. They're all 24-point forces, which gets you about 3 or 4 British units, and sort of between 5 and 7 tribal units.
Right. Okay.
So you end up with a typical colonial engagement of fewer regular troops against an awful lot of native troops, which is what you want out of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Dan's gone for a playability kind of ethos in the game. So the rules are very straightforward, very, very easy to play, but not oversimplistic, so it just becomes a silly dice rolling exercise.
Yeah.
So you've got tactical considerations at all points. You've got to really think about what you're doing. There's a lovely mechanism for pinning troops. So tribal armies need to make sure they try and pin regular armies, troops, because when you're pinned you can't do anything.
Yeah.
And you fight obviously a lot worse. So if you can pin them with your rifleman and charge them with your swordsman, for example, that's going to hurt. So it's that kind of thing, and it's all very elegant, very easy to play. And the other thing to remember is also it's a lot more carry on up the Khyber than it is. So there's a lot of little things that make it humorous. So each unit has a leader, which has to dice for a leadership trait. So some of those are really positive.
Yeah.
So it might give you extra shooting dice, extra melee dice, or let you move further or whatever. Okay. And others are not so positive. So you get things like, we've got a cracker in our game today, where one of the tribal units has got, the gentleman has an opium pipe. So basically he could be smoking drugs, and he's he's kind of got to test each turn.
Yes.
And so it's that kind of thing. So you get that also
a bit of unpredictability in how your troops are going.
A lot of unpredictability in there, yeah. And like, if you've played Lion Rampart, you know how that works. You've got to activate units each turn. Same thing in this. Although in this game, if you fail with one unit, your whole turn doesn't stop. You get a chance to activate everything. And again, that's variable because you've got to roll dice to do that.
Yeah, but it's potentially a little bit more forgiving.
A little bit more forgiving, and a lot of players I know are a bit unsure of the Lion Rampart mechanism over one fail, whole turn ends. Yeah. Whereas in this game, that doesn't happen. Right. And I can see why it doesn't, because obviously you're dealing with more regular troops. So,
yeah. And you're saying the game's got a bit more of a cinematic sort of feel to it.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, if you go into the game thinking Zulu, carry on up the Khyber, Gunga Din, Zulu Dawn, that kind of thing, you're going to get a feel for the game. The nice thing about it is there are suggested army lists in the back of the book, but you don't have to use those. I mean, for our game today, we're doing Northwest Frontier, 1890s. So we've tweaked the units to suit the theatre operations. So regular troops, for example, don't normally get to move over rough ground without penalty. We've got a unit of Gurkhas who live in Nepal.
Indeed.
So we've allowed them to do that because, they should be able to up mountains like mountain goats, shouldn't they? So we've done that because we know that's what the period demands. So you can change things to suit your theatre operations, and you can play anything from 1840 sort of Sikh Wars, Maori Wars, Indian Mutiny, right through to the Pathan Revolt, Boer War in 1900. So you've got
quite a range.
I mean, you could do the American Civil War with it very easily if you wanted to. You can do Indian Wars with it very easily. So anything like that.
And it's a period of history that really hasn't been covered by many rule sets. People seem to have sort of kept away from it, haven't they?
I mean, there was it's kind of a set of rules that, with the odd exception, hasn't. The period. With the odd exception, it's kind of been a bit out of vogue for a few years, hasn't it? It's kind of been kind of very much on the back burner. I mean, it's always been there, but there's not been that much.
And I think there's a reason for that. I think the reason for that is that if you're playing as a native player, a lot of rule sets, it's difficult to win. Because let's face it, in big battles, they didn't very often win, did they? It was where they excel is in the small unit actions, where they can use the cover and all that.
What you really want is a small.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's not many figures.
No.
40, 50 figures.
Yeah, I mean, we've got literally our British field force, standard British field force with our points allocations. We've got 36 British figures.
Oh wow!
Is a field force, and then you've got our native one is, let me see, 36 plus 32. So what's that? 68. So you've got an odds of about 2-1 in favour of the natives.
Yeah.
And that balances out.
Yeah, but very manageable force sizes.
Oh yeah.
As a small project to do.
Oh, yeah. Very easily. Yeah, I mean you can do that quite easily. And we're playing with a bigger force today. We have got more troops coming on the table, but very manageable. And the other thing to say about the rules, Dan's written a number of scenarios, because I think with any kind of warfare, any kind of war game, for me the scenario rules the game.
Yeah,
especially skirmish level.
Especially at this level, and Dan's got several. Yeah, so there are lots of different options, for that, which is great. So you've got various scenarios. I mean, we've made our own up today, but there are lots in the rule book, that we've played as play testers several times, and we've not had a bad game. I think we've played at least a dozen games, not a bad one yet. Which I think, given that we were play testing from the word go and changing the rules as we went along, because that happened. Obviously, we'd play a game and go, well, that didn't work very well. Email Dan and back it comes changed.
Yeah.
But even in those early days, the not working very well was still great fun. So that says something, isn't it?
What's the sort of length of the game? Is it about an hour and a half?
It does depend to a certain extent on which scenario you play.
Yeah.
But it's very easy to get through a game in an evening at a club with multiple players. Hour and a half, 2 hours at the most, really.
So saying multiple players, does it scale well as far as the multiplayer aspect is concerned?
Yeah, we're finding if you get any more than 4 players, it slows down because but that's probably because the way we're doing it, we've divided our armies today into 2. So there's 2 British and 2 Catan tribal unit armies. Yeah. So we've got 1 player commanding each of the forces, which means there's a bit of waiting around, but that's not bothering the players today. But you could do that differently by mixing and matching. So you could have 4 different forces, but players having models in their command in 2, for example. So you could activate. The thing is, it's an I go you go game.
Yeah.
When you're playing 1-on-1, but we're doing card activation today by player.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it just made more sense to do that. So that adds another air of unpredictability. Yeah. So we're finding certainly 4 players on the scale we're doing today, which effectively is about double the size of field force you'd normally use, and we're finding 4 players is working pretty well. And these are players who don't know the rules. Yeah. So we're obviously umpiring that, but they're picking it up really quickly. A few minutes and you're knowing what you're rolling, and it's yes. So I like games like that. Yeah. You can engage quickly.
Yeah. So as far as you're saying, it's kind of maiden outing today. Sort of thing. Is it a situation where it's basically finished now?
The play testing is complete, so we're just waiting for Osprey's release schedule now to kick in, and they obviously release an awful lot of stuff. Yeah. Obviously, Dragon Rampant is their next. Yeah. Dan Mersey released rules in December, I think, this year. So I don't know why it's August, but obviously we are getting original Peter Dennis artwork for the cover. Cool. So that's another great thing. So we're hoping we can take the game out to a few other shows in the new year. Yeah. And Osprey have told us they hope to get us the artwork as soon as they can, so we can have that at the next games. But couldn't do it today. But August. Long while to wait, but we figure by getting it out there and getting people playing our demo game, then hopefully that'll bring people in to buy it.
That's it. And of course, it's a case of hopefully first part of the year they can go through, find you a demo. And so by the time it's come out, they may even have a painted army.
They may have a painted army, exactly. I mean, we're posting these things on the internet. I mean, Dan's very, very easygoing with that, as long as we don't sort of paraphrase the rules too much. We can post game reports. We've been doing that on Red Adventure Forum, my blog, so it's out there in internet land, so people are seeing it, and so far the vibe is very positive. So we're big advocates at Peterborough. We love it, but then we like all Dan's rules here, so we enjoy it, we play it. It's great for a club night. Yeah, multiplayer club night, fantastic for that. So another reason to enjoy it, really.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for chatting to us, Andy. It's been great, and let's have a go. I shall look forward to having a go again.
Indeed, yeah. Thanks so much.
Thanks for your time.
Cheers. Pleasure.
Cheers.
Bye then.
We bumped into Simon Miller again. We must start meeting like this.
Hello. We seem to run into each other at most of the shows, don't we?
Yeah,
always great to see you.
It seems you've been busy this year then. Touring around lots of shows.
Yeah, we've done. I've done a Salute and Two Partisans, Selwig, a couple of other smaller events. It's been, and a couple of trips down the Wargames Holiday Centre, which is always a laugh. I love going down there. I'm going down there next week.
You are, because my friend Mark is coming out to see you.
Oh, right. Where's he live?
He lives by me.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
Oh, fantastic.
Mark.
Oh, it'd be great to see Mark.
Yes. He's looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be... I've had quite a relaxing day today because I'm playing with James Morris and Scribs, who've got fantastic collections, which they've brought up. So they brought the terrain, the armies and everything. And all I've had to bring is myself and a few boxes of playing cards.
Brilliant.
Which is wonderful. It's been quite a relaxed trip.
So it makes a change from your usual thing of carting
next week
several tons of metal event.
Next week for the Wargames Holiday Centre. Yeah. I'm planning to run 4 games in parallel at a time, each of which will have between 500 and 1,500 figures. Right. So I'm going to need to take 4,000 to 5,000 figures with me in the car. And set up 4 games and help them run. Although luckily now there's, unlike last year, so many people have now played the rules that on the whole it's just people coming over with the odd query.
It'll go well. So you've been doing Elsid?
We've been doing Elsid today. It's been absolutely fantastic. I've got to play twice. We've got it's just after Elsid the game. I've been playing Alfonso the Battler, who's a valiant king who in the first game, well actually in both games, has managed to hack his way through the enemy lines and out the other side. But the game is still in the balance as I've left it. I'll be curious to see where it's gone when I go back later on. It's going backwards and forwards. The first game was just luckily it was a walkover, but this game has been a really hard slog.
So what do you think of the venue?
I think it's absolutely fantastic. High ceilings, really light, lots of room, not too crowded. It's a really, really, really good thing actually. I must say I'm really pleased with it. I wasn't expecting, I didn't even know about the show until 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah. And it's been an unexpected late show for me because I don't go to the very last shows of the year when it gets dark and it gets harder to move the armies around. I get a bit more worried with the driving, so I usually sort of tucked up with my winter painting by this time. But it's been a suitable end to the year really. Very nice, friendly atmosphere, very relaxed, no parking problems. I'll definitely come next year. Actually, it's a no-brainer.
So, how is To the Strongest and the Big Red Batcave going?
Oh, it's going very well. Yes.
You seem to be adding stuff to the site almost every week.
Well, there's various things I've got going on, and I'll give you a quick run through. The battle mats. I bought a couple for myself actually based on Mark and your recommendation. I think it was originally. Yeah. So I started off. I was selling the rules, and then I decided people wanted chits to use with the rules, so I started selling the chits in the shop. Then at one of the shows I bought some Importers and Plotters and Deep Cut. They're lovely. I mean, they were so good. I started using those, and people kept trying to buy them off me. So I decided to sell them, obviously, as you would.
I was going to say, at the shows you're going to go, well, one of those things of, are you doing anything with that mat? Can I have it?
It just made sense. To... but yeah, by the time we finished the last game at Selwood, I'd actually sold the mats we were using, so it's a partisan rather. So I started importing the mats from Deep Cut, and a lot of people have been interested in those because I'm selling them in different sizes. I'm selling them with and without grids. They've been going like hotcakes. I've started to bring in different designs as well. Right. So I've got to have 4 designs going by next week. Yeah, I've got 3 at the moment, and I've got the desert ones coming shortly. And they're selling in all the sizes to people that like grids and people that don't like grids. So we've got those. Then the chits, as I say, the chits are selling. I've got. I'm doing some hills. hills to match the mats. The most popular of the mats is the plains one.
Yeah.
I've discovered the right mix of flocks and grits and things to actually effectively match the plains mats. Rather than everybody having to discover that, I'll actually make a big batch up and sell them off.
Oh, right, so your winter's going to be spent playing around with MDF and blue foam.
Well, I have 75 manufactured hills arriving this week that I just need to redecorate.
Oh, cool.
That's going to be a lot of static charging and block. So we've got that going on. And the last thing I haven't... Well, I've talked to you, I'm doing some bases. Predominantly for use with To the Strongest, but they rock with anything really. They're interesting. They're irregular shape bases that look more naturalistic. They're 2mm MDF, so they've got a fairly low profile. The slightly novel thing I've done with them is I've got them all pre-drilled for 2mm rare earth magnets, or 2mm thick rare earth magnets, which drop into the holes. You glue them in place, so you don't need to magnabase them. So I'll be selling the bases in different sizes with the magnets and perhaps even assembled for some people. So I've got that coming on as well. And whilst I've been doing that, I've been doing some writing. I'm working on the fantasy version that we've talked about before.
Oh, yes, because we were talking about that at the party time, weren't we?
Yeah, I haven't got it. It's not really in a play-testable state that I've to give out to anyone yet, but the mechanisms are very similar to the Strongest. I think I've actually got a couple of things in that are possibly improved. So that's underway, and I have another version that's just about play-testable of horse and musket rules, which are quite fun. Very similar engines, but grid-based, fast-moving. So I'm now actually, Mark will be interested. I've bought my first medieval figures.
Excellent.
Wars of the Roses.
Yeah.
A couple of units of those just rolling off the production line this week, and I've got my first horse and musket figures.
Right.
I've got some lovely figures from David.
You're moving up the centuries, aren't you?
Oh, I'm just... I was so restrained. I used to just do Romans. Yeah. Now I do everything. It's bad. It's very bad. So, yeah, I've got some lovely figures from David Imrie that I'm just basing up as well. So, a couple of new periods for me. Oh, and some fantasy figures as well.
That'd be great. I'm looking forward to seeing the fantasy rules come out.
Yeah, I really want to get going on those. So that's mostly what I've been up to. It's been a very busy year. Quite looking forward to a slightly slower winter with a bit of painting and a bit of basing and some time for reflection. Yeah. But it's been a great year, actually, really fun.
Good stuff, good.
Excellent. Well, yeah. And as of today, lots of interest in what you're doing as far as the game is concerned.
Yeah, the game is still selling very well. Both the hard copy and the PDF version. I had just had an interview with I think Vivictis this week in France. That was in their magazine. Had some French purchases on the back of that this week. I'd very much like to. I think one of the things I really want to do next year is do some more work on America, because in the UK I'm going around all the shows. I've got the big games. People can see it. People can come over and play a bit of it.
Yeah.
In America, I haven't really got that. There are quite a few people playing it and quite a few people buying it, but because I'm not over there, I would really like to. I was thinking my resolution, maybe not for next year, but certainly by the year after, is to go over to a couple of the big conventions.
Yeah.
And maybe join with some friends over there and run a game at one of the conventions. I think that would be a lot of fun for next year. But I say, the main thing really is to write the fantasy rules, because I think that's the logical thing to do after the ancient rules.
Yeah.
It's not a big stretch. Very similar mechanisms. Obviously additional magic, additional races, and flying. Yeah, those are the main things. There's some interesting new figures coming out. I've been looking at a very nice range from I can't think what the name of the company is. The guy that's doing the really nice hobbits. There's a lovely range of Kickstarter for some hobbits, Halfling army coming out towards Christmas. They're really superb miniatures. I've got some painted, absolutely top figures. Halflings in a sort of 100 Years' War English style with little pot hats and really crossbows instead of... you know, the name has just slipped me. It'll come back in a minute. But he's got a Kickstarter coming out, and I'd very much like to get an army of those. No, it's not. They're it's a German chap. Senior moment. He's a very nice guy. He's got halfling knights on giant rams that look quite... They look good. So it's... I should definitely be treating myself to some of those this winter as well.
I should be dusting off my my Warmaster armies again. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been using those for sword and spear, but it's just perfect because I got same figures I can use for
that's
as well.
That's the nice thing really about the grids, is that you can pretty much use anything against anything really on those, regardless of basing system.
Well, mine are all based on 80 wide.
Oh, that's absolutely perfect then. So you want the 10 centimetre, you want the 10 centimetre grid map.
I have a couple already.
Yeah, you've got some of the. Have you got the vinyl ones or the?
I've got the vinyl ones.
Yes.
So I might come and see you about getting one of the cloth ones.
By all
very
means,
interested in seeing the cloth ones. So.
They've got one of the cloth ones actually on the Men Who Would Be King table.
Have they?
Yes, I sold them those a couple of weeks ago. Those are the Wastelands design, but you probably want the more practical green one. My favourite one is the Plains design. It looks,
I've got step design, so I'll probably go for a plain one in cloth.
Right, yes. Okay, well, we can give me a shout.
I'll
plenty in stock. So it's all been good and lovely to see you guys again. I probably won't see you again this year, will I?
Probably not. No, probably not. But as I say, hopefully we'll bump into each other early next year, and you'll have lots more to tell us.
Fantastic.
Great stuff.
I'll have to see you about the hills as well.
Oh, the hills, yeah.
Have you set the hills so they will fit into a grid?
Right. So far, the first big batch of 75 hills are going to be either roughly 15 centimetre, 16 centimetre to fit on a 15 centimetre grid, or 15 by 30 also to fit on that grid. I've got hills already in a 20 centimetre, so in fact I'm going to post it on my blog next week. They look really, really good. Because I've never thought of it before, but once you've actually got these mats that look three-dimensional, you can't just plonk a plain green hill on them, because it doesn't match, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. But these hills actually really convincingly match in with the mats.
Fantastic. So, then. I shall see you for a mat and some hills then.
A mat and some hills, okay. It's done it is.
Fantastic. Well, Simon, it's been great to chat.
Always a pleasure.
And we shall catch up with you really soon. And continued all the best, man.
Well, thank you very much. Yes. I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers then.
Good luck with the game. Right.
Yeah. Cheers. I'll go back and it'll all have gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, it's all,
Well, here we all are. It's the Meeples crew all together. And of course, the round table is really popular. We have no one wants to speak to us, guys. Yet.
That's because they're all playing games.
These things may change. Indeed. We'll take advantage of our availability for Mr. Whitaker to put his other hat on and talk about the show. We actually had to get together last night, which was rather spiffing. We hadn't done that before.
No, we should do that again.
Which apparently was for our AGM, according to myself.
It's our AGM, yeah.
Oh, was that it?
I thought it was meeting my mates down the pub.
Well, exactly. Well, that's what I said. It was like, okay.
It means we can claim it back on VAT and stuff.
Yes.
Hang on, wait. Hang on. You mean you're getting paid for this?
What?
No, you. I was getting worried for a minute.
Anyway, it has to be said, last night we were discussing, so how many people do you think you were coming? And you were kind of looking at the pre-orders and kind of going, I'm not quite sure, and I don't know what metrics we can use. So last night we had 70 odd pre-orders?
70 odd pre-orders, yeah.
As far as tickets are concerned?
We've matched that in walk-ins.
Right.
And then and a few more. So we're certainly past the break-even point.
Fantastic!
And people seem to be happy.
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, from an organisational point of view, how's it all gone?
I think our first takeaway is more signs. Nobody seems to be able to find the loos.
Oh, okay.
despite them being clearly marked on the plan in the programme guide, but never mind.
People don't look at programme guides.
The people never look at programme guides. Other than that, we seem to be doing pretty much all right. We lost a couple of games tables, but that's due to some combination of man flu and knee ligaments, I gather.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is quite useful because we're sat at one of them.
Indeed.
Other than that, it seems to be going all right. Traders seem happy. Traders seem relatively busy.
Yeah.
People seem to be liking the games. We've just given the Steve Frisbee Memorial Trophy to the guys from Huntingdon for their rather delightfully wacky Catch the Pigeon game.
Catch the Pigeon game, which is absolutely
fantastic.
Yes. We do have to go and speak to them about it.
We do have to go and speak to them about it.
It's very much in the spirit of things that we at the club would have done. One of those wacky, large-scale, big, clunky, fun participation games. And
yes.
Kids seem to love it.
Yeah, and yes, you did hear Catch the Pigeon. Yes, it is based on the Dastardly and Muttley cartoon.
Absolutely.
Including apparently a professionally sculpted pigeon.
Absolutely.
It's
on top of that, let's see. On top of that, we've got our big Dam Busters game, which is doing its usual of attracting people. There's some lovely, lovely figures. You've just heard of the interview with
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
And the rather pretty El Cid table that James and Scribs put up.
Very nice.
There's lots of nice big games here, which always appeals to me. I like games that aren't just, let's see what we can squeeze on a 6x4.
Yeah, there's a big, we've got things like, there's a big Commander Colours epic scale game.
Yes, I thought you might like that.
Yeah, well, it looks like that looks interesting. I thought
you might.
Yeah, I think these
That's
interesting.
Bedford, I think.
Oh, it's Bedford, yeah.
So you might need to go and chat with them.
And there's a big Kings of War game.
Kings of War Extreme.
Kings of War Extreme.
Courtesy of the GCN guys and Cogs, I think.
Right, which has got it's like every army against every other.
Yeah,
but
and why not?
Yeah, but it's huge. And
I even had time for some shopping.
Oh wow! Okay.
What
have I bought? I've picked up some SDKZ 250s and a SDKZ 231 for my Glenville Old Bust I had been Shotman campaign, and the infamous Mervyn Douglas managed to sell me some Kings of War elves.
Oh right, okay.
But I knew that was going to happen.
So this is hello Mervyn. This is the Mervyn that I'm currently gazing at. Who in a conversation. I hope you're listening to this now because you're refusing to come over here and talk to us. Hello Mervyn. No pressure, mate.
He's definitely looking sheepish over there, isn't he?
He is. Well,
back into him.
Well, that's because he stepped into my shoes and commanded my sausages in the Shop Practice 2 demo game, and failed to bring cake, which is, I mean, Derby set a precedent. I think now it's just going to be a case of
there must be cake.
There must be cake. Yeah. So again, no pressure.
How was Shop Practice?
Very good, very, very good. It just subtly changed the activation, and you've suddenly got this wonderful resource management tool dropped into the activation.
Which, in some way, it's sort of the generation of Chain of Command, even if it's not done the same way.
Well, they're using copper down cards, so it's a bit Dux-like.
A bit Duxy.
Except, of course, especially for us, and it's all my fault. They were renamed as sausage cards today.
Sausage.
Because I had been complaining about Mr. Clarke's lack of sausage in his daily repast. And so he said,
"You want?" Which appears to consist of bacon, egg, and black pudding, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
So he said, "You want sausages? I'll give you sausages." So yes, we were playing with sausages, and it has to be said, other than the fact of it's a great set of rules, and with what they've done with the activations, they made it a lot more streamlined. Mm-hmm. So they've taken away the unit activations, and so now you're only activating on your characters.
Right.
But you have this extra resource with the Carpe Diem cards, which means that you can use them during a turn or at the end of a turn if they haven't been used. You can then use them to activate units.
I don't think you ever could activate on your units in Sharp Practice. It's always been on the command cards, on the characters, I think. I may be wrong.
Maybe I'm getting mixed up with them.
One of the things I certainly, when I first played Sharp Practice, it was very definitely, you could see that it was the ancestor of things like I Ain't Been Shot on and the like. And it would be very interesting to see how this has sort of become a contemporary of it.
Yeah, he's just subtly tweaked. I mean, basically, he's got there's 4 Carpe Diem cards per side, and you've got the choice. You can either use them as they come out for a minor benefit, or you can gamble and hope you get 2, 3 or 4, and if you get 4 you can do something really big with it. But obviously there's a tiffin card in it, so the turn can end at any time.
But that per character activation is actually very Duck Sprit again. Because you get the British Lords and everything else like that. We have a visitor.
Indeed. Hello.
Hi. We have a visitor with a Den Busters medal.
Yes, I won the posthumous DFC.
The posthumous.
For getting machine gunned in the face by a German.
While at the same time dropping the bomb and blowing the dam.
No.
DFC. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's what the other 20 Lancasters are for, or whatever it is.
Yeah. So who are you?
My name's Gareth.
Gareth. I'm Mike.
I'm here playing in the Dreadball tournament.
Oh, how are you doing?
Well, I've won 2 and lost 1, so it could be worse. I'm playing the convict team.
Oh, right, okay. Curious. The first chance I've had to talk to someone who's actually played anything further than Season 3. What's it like? How's it play?
Yeah, there's some really good teams in Season 4 and 5.
I'm a huge Void Sirens fan. I just flick it downfield and catch it.
Yeah, the Void Sirens.
That's my sole reason for existence, really.
Yeah, the Void Sirens are a great team.
So what's the shtick with the convicts?
Well, the convicts all have shock collar, which is like the sort of exploding collars that you get in Dreadball Extreme, which means that, but rather than it being actually exploding and taking the guy's head off, it just creates an electric shock that damages all the people around. And of course, in Dreadball, if you're aware of the sort of three-man defence strategy at the back of the, which is something that happens in tournament play a lot. They effectively have the ability to break through that very, very easily, because the shock collar automatically knocks anyone adjacent over.
The thing with certainly the way I play with Void Sirens, it's screw defence, throw the ball downfield. I've not really ever seen. I've played against the 3-man defence, but it's not something I use. But then I don't play tournament Dreadball. So.
So I've been to a few Dreadball tournaments now. In fact, I went to the final last weekend.
How'd you get on?
I won.
Oh wow! Oh, so we actually have the national Dreadball champion here.
Yes,
he was quite quiet about that.
He was really quiet about that.
He just dropped that in.
Yes.
And what team? And what team were you playing when you won?
The Rebellions.
Another of the season
unincorporated. A season 14. Yeah, very, very strong team.
Are they balanced?
I think so. Yes. The secret is
because you won.
The secret is to kill the frogs.
Right.
There are the 2 strikers on the Rebs team are little frogs. They only have 2 strikers, and once you've killed them, it's a lot easier to
score.
The Jacks
are a lot harder to score.
Precisely, yeah. And they are very good strikers. They have skill 3+. If you don't get rid of them, they will punish you.
Really?
So you kill them with extreme prejudice very early on in the game.
Right.
And that's the only way.
Clearly, people weren't.
No, they weren't actually. So my last game was against Leon Chapman, who's the reigning Dreadball champion. He was playing convicts, he's an absolutely tremendous guy and very, very gracious in defeat. Even though he was expecting to.
Was it a close game?
It was pretty close, yeah. All of the games were pretty close, but at the end of the day, he didn't kill the frogs.
And thus, here you are.
Yeah.
National Dreadball champion.
Yes.
So other than Dreadball, what else do you play?
Oh, a bit of Flames of War. I know that's a bit of a dirty word around you guys, but
no, it's a dirty word around me. You have to know, I say this while probably owning more Battlefront than these two combined.
That's right.
The thing is, do you enjoy it?
Yeah, I do.
Then it's a great game. And that's
fair enough.
That's all that matters, is people enjoying games.
Are you going to try Iron Cross?
Yeah, actually, I heard your review of it, and it's very intriguing. So I want to get cracking.
We're still arguing.
Yes,
indeed we are. Okay, so Flames of War,
Saga.
Good man.
I like a bit of Saga. Jugular, actually. I play
even better, man.
I organised a little Jugular league down in Colchester.
All right.
Which went down really, really well. I do like these little games that you can play in leagues, and have only a few figures.
They're really good for club.
Yeah,
aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Particularly if it's something that doesn't take too long.
Yeah.
So did you do a full campaign with Jugular, or did you just play a few games?
We did the full campaign. So somebody got. We decided that we would keep going and keep going until somebody got a Rudius.
Yeah.
Nobody got a Rudius in the end, but somebody got into absurdly high numbers of glory.
Uncatchably high numbers.
Uncatchably, it was a little bit. But yes, so Jugular's a big favourite of mine. What else do I play? I also play a bit of Infinity and a bit of Dead Man's Hand and any board games that are going, really.
You're right.
Which reminds me, we're overdue a board games episode.
Yeah, that's true.
We are. Yeah.
Hearken to our listener, for he is right.
So it's going to say, I'm the National Dreadball Champion, and by the way, you need more board games on your show.
I think the former does rather give you the right.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Well, we are planning on doing Heroes of Normandy at some stage.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, that was quite a fun little game.
Yeah, and we are speaking to
Mark Lewis, yes.
Yeah, we are speaking to Mark Lewis, who Mark we owe an apology to, because we promised faithfully that we get Mark on to do a board games review and haven't spoken to him since, which is an oversight on my part. So apologies, Mark.
I wasn't going to mention it, but
yeah, well there we go.
Yeah, we're overdue for that.
Cool.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet the three of you. I've listened to the podcast for a long time, and I was
going to say, how long have you inflicted yourself with this?
And of course, the follow-up question is, how much have we cost you?
Apart from in Dreadball, which I first heard about Dreadball on your podcast. So,
right, okay.
So yeah, thanks for that. But
but you're the champion now. I mean,
it's true. Yeah.
You owe it all to Meeples.
So yeah, I do. Yeah. No, I listen to you guys, and I have a very limited wargaming budget, a very modest wargaming budget. So I wouldn't say you've cost me too much over the years, but I do. You have managed to make my commute an awful lot more bearable. So thank you for that.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, nice, man.
You make my commute more bearable when I'm not on the show.
Yeah. You see,
it's when I have to listen to myself.
Here's a listener who's done exactly what he's told. He's come over and said, "Come over and tell us how good we are."
Yeah, you go away now.
I probably have to get back to the tournament. But what I would like to say though is that having played in quite a few Dreadball tournaments now, I can honestly say that the Dreadball tournament scene is really friendly, really sportsmanlike.
Yeah,
and I get that. I mean, Dale, who I'm sure you'll know, is
terrific,
a Mantic Pathfinder. And
Dale went to every single
and he's our
regional
club's Pathfinder.
Yeah,
he usually comes back with glowing tails.
Yeah, he's a tremendous player, and he's a really good. He's a really good sport, and he's a really good guy. And I beat him in the final.
Well, Gareth, maybe the national champion, Rob from our club, is the most violent player in England.
Yes, yes, Rob's a terrific bloke as well. You see, I'm on first name terms with people now, and that's the pleasure of being part of that scene.
So actually, how big is the Dreadball tournament scene in the UK?
I went to the Eastern Regional, and there were 22 players at the Eastern Regional, only 16 in the final, but I don't think the final was very well publicised, if I'm honest. I think you'd probably find that there are between 50 to 80 people who in the country who've gone to
next year we're earlier.
Yes.
So we'll be before the national. So we'll probably talk to Mantic about making this a regional.
Do you tend to see the same faces? Is there much, for example, if you had people now who were just picking up Dreadball, how easy is it for the more novice player to get involved?
There are people, there are people of all different abilities who come to these events, and
there are also people who've not been playing it very long who turn out to be scarily good.
Yes, yeah, I know. Yeah, she is, isn't she?
She's frightening.
The best thing about it is that even with somebody like Pete Fulgreen and his wife Jen, hi guys, they're absolutely terrific players, but they're also really good people, and they will be sportsmanlike, and you'll learn an awful lot about Dreadball from playing them.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely one for a novice to
compared to
get
what
into.
you hear about some other tournament scenes.
Quite, yeah.
But then Dreadball has the advantage of once they've nerfed a couple of the more silly tactics, which was done fairly early on.
Yeah.
It's very hard to be too power gaming with it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the new teams that have come out, which are quite fiddly teams where you choose your own team.
Yeah.
The general consensus of opinion is that they are not the best tournament teams. So I was a little bit worried that was going to break the game, but it doesn't seem to have. So
yeah, that would have been my concern, because you also hit this. One of my pet peeves is the n-squared problem. As you add more teams,
I agree.
You've got to moderate the interaction between all possible pairings of teams.
Yeah.
Try and make them balance. Otherwise, you just want
and there
nobody would play.
And there are a couple of teams. There are a couple of teams who will struggle against other teams. So Kalishi versus Terratons is a bad for the Kalishi.
Is Kalishi paste, basically?
Kalishi paste, yeah. Their tactics just won't work on the Terratons, and apparently Convicts versus Terratons is very bad for the Terratons.
Surprising.
So there are some matchups which are a little bit tricky. But generally speaking, it's quite a high look game, so you can very much get away with having a different spread of teams. I would say there's about 6 teams which are sort of top flight tournament winning teams,
which is the distinct improvement on everybody's playing
one team
because it's the only team. Yeah, there were moments in Flames of War when I think everybody had one of the American teams, because it was just the intent. It was so ridiculous with tank destroyers.
They all the tank the teleporting, materialising tank destroyers.
Those are they. Yes.
Yeah. The thing
I thought it was very restrained. Did you see that?
It was
very good.
So the thing about Flames of War is that it allows you to take so much divisional support that you've basically got the entire. I was playing British Paras, and I realised from reading an OOB that I had the entire 6th Airborne Division's complement of anti-tank guns in my little company. So I find if you restrict army building, an actual fact, Flames of War becomes a tremendously good game.
I have a hunch that it probably plays better on bigger tables.
It does.
Yes.
Played on big 12x12 or 12x8.
Rather than the usual
either that or you play 6x4, but you only play with a couple of platoons aside, rather than the 6 platoons.
It's like any game though. If you just play it, sensibly, you get a good game out of it. Like I said, we did North Africa, Flames of War.
Yeah.
Big tables, a small amount of troops, and that worked quite well. But it's when you get the tank car parts.
Actually, North Africa is the best theatre for Flames of War.
Oh yeah.
I
can see
no super tanks.
I mean, let's face it. Your scariest things are Matilda. There's one tiger on the other side.
Yes.
It's usually the one Matilda that's slowly moving forward, slowly.
With 88 shells pinging off its front arm.
It can't do anything, but it's slowly moving forward.
I'd probably better get back to the tournament.
Indeed. Well,
lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you. Thank you for taking time
dropping in.
Thanks.
And best of luck.
Keep making the podcast, guys.
Oh, we will. Thank you. You'll have trouble stopping us.
See you later.
Okay, cheers then.
Where strategy board games and miniature war games collide. This is the Meeples and Miniatures podcast.
We've been joined by James Morris. Hello, James.
Hello, Neil.
How you doing? You all right?
Very good, thank you.
And you, as we were chatting to Simon earlier, you brought along your lovely your lovely LC Miniature collection.
Yes, absolutely. It's really nice to get it out of the loft. Good to have an excuse. We've started doing, myself and Paul Scriven-Smith have started doing some games with Simon because we like the strongest rules. We've got quite big collections of Dark Age and medieval stuff, and it's nice to have a rule set that lets us play a game through in an hour and a half in a convention setting.
It's that get the toys on the table thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we still play Warhammer Ancient Battles now and again. We still love it, but the single figure removal systems are a nightmare when you've got multiple collections and really big battles. So we're enjoying playing this.
You spend more time with tables by the side to keep track of your casualties.
Yeah, and I think one of the tricks with running games at shows is always to have enough people on the table to keep the game running. So by teaming up with Simon, that puts Simon and some of his friends into the picture as well, so it just increases the size of the team, because I think everyone hates going around the show and seeing a game where there's nobody there and nothing is happening. Whether it's participation or demo, people like to see the game happening to decide whether they fancy playing it or buying it, or just out of pure interest, really.
How are you finding the rules?
Good. I'm still learning, to be honest. Scribs can learn a set of rules in about 5 minutes and regurgitate it 6 months later. I take a loss of learning. We enjoy them. It's very quick. What we're finding is Simon has just written the LCID lists at the moment, and we've had a few phone conversations about them, so they're changing day by day, and really today has been our first chance to play them through to see how it works for the period.
Okay.
We've made a couple of changes already, and I think they work. I mean, they're, you know, once you get used to the concept, you're not using tape measures, you're not using dice, and because you're representing a big battle, the units can die very quickly, then it's a fun game.
Yeah, as I say, it's there's that one hurdle which I know you kind of ignore about not using dice.
Well, yeah, we actually play using dice, but we use dice for combat.
Yeah, I thought about using D10s for it. Simon says other people do it.
Yeah, we do it. Actually, no, we use dice for everything.
Yeah,
and it does work. You know, and
well, all the cards are doing is generating a random number between 1 and 10, isn't it? There's no picture cards in the deck, and aces are low, so...
But it's... I've tried it with cards, I've tried it with the chits, and we've tried it with dice, and they all work, and they all give you a subtly different feel to the game.
Because my big argument with using dice as opposed to using chits is obviously if you're using chits in the bag with the turn sequence, obviously as you're putting more chits out, you're actually affecting your probabilities.
Which is equally true of cards.
Well, yes. Well, that's it. Yeah, chits and cards, whereas dice.
There's an interesting sort of evening out of the odds. That if you've had an extreme result, you know it'll be offset somewhere else.
Yes.
In the dealing from a deck that you don't get from dice.
I suppose so, but I mean, you've got 2 sets of cards in a deck, and you know when you get an ace, generally your turn is over if you're activating. So, yeah, I don't know. Your turn can end very quickly. We have just had some turns in there that ended very quickly with an ace being drawn to activate a unit, which is an automatic fail. But it then means turn play passes very quickly, and we found that in a sequence of turns, we had a few turns where a lot of aces came up, and then it was very quickly balanced out later on.
But as you say, especially combat-wise, it does tend to get it's fairly quick and brutal, isn't it?
Yeah, we started playing Hail Caesar a few years ago for this kind of battle, but it still takes a while to play. The game still cracks along, but you're throwing a lot of dice in combat. Often we were throwing 10 or 15 dice in a single combat, and then you've got saving rolls to make on it as well. So I've been surprised about how swift the game is, just with draw a card, activate to attack, activate to hit, saving throw if you get it, done. You know,
there's also, I don't know if this is just me, I find there's an interesting psychological difference between rolling dice for activation, where the fail feels like it's your fault, and drawing a card for activation, where the failure feels like it's just the whim of the deck.
Yes.
I always found that Hail Caesar frustrated me because I rolled crap dice.
Yes.
For some reason, the physical act of rolling the dice makes a difference. It shouldn't, but it does.
I think the thing Hail Caesar's got is when you have to roll your leadership roll to activate anything, then your turn can very, very quickly be over because you're often having to roll an 8 in many cases in Hail Caesar.
My first game of Hail Caesar was one of the ones scenarios out of the book with the Romans against the Parthians. And it was very clear from the rubbishy activation rolls I made that my general was sitting there and waiting for the current emperor to get himself killed to get the job, because I couldn't activate for toffee.
I think an advantage the strongest has over Hail Caesar is that you've got, because on the first activation you'll normally activate on anything but an ace, then you've got a chance of getting some units activated before you get a fail. I mean, you've got the same rules. You've got the general re-roll effect, the general redraw of a card. And I've been playing Lion Rampant a bit recently as well, and again, that turn can end very, very quickly. I think it's a different game. It's meant to be a fun Hollywood skirmish game, but your turn can end very quickly when you fail to activate, but then it often happens to your opponents as well. So,
But I think it's Lion Rampant seems to me to fall into the category of games where you need to approach it with the mindset that you will not be activating all your troops every turn.
Which is never a bad thing.
Chain of command, I ain't being shot man for 2 more.
Yeah, I think Lion Rampant is top of that list, though, for you might not be activating, and that is purely random. With Chain of Command and I ain't been shot, you've got a lot of chances of waiting it.
I ain't been shot, and you're still at the mercy of when the T-break card turns up. But Chain of Command particularly, you accept the fact that you will activate some, but not all.
But you roll your dice and you get some choice, just like DBA and DBM, where you might have some dreadful rolls, but you can at least prioritise what you're going to, unless you roll all 5s and 6s or all 4s in the early turns of the game with Chain of Command. But no, it's an interesting game. It's nice to play something a bit different. It's nice to kind of see the game scene evolving away from mega complex rules to even simpler ones.
That is something that's happened over the last few years, isn't it? I mean, most games start plateau down to playability.
Yeah. I think there's some really good entry-level games on the market. And stuff like many of the Osprey series, very, very simple games to play, small setup. I was reading the Wargames and Soldiers strategy poll before I came out from their latest poll, and again they're looking at their results. They're extrapolating that wargaming is still, it's a broad church with a lot of very narrow niches in it, and I think within that anything that gets people in is good, because you've got to be interested in painting and modelling things, and there's so many pre-painted or just board game options nowadays. Games like X-Wing, Wings of Glory. You don't need to assemble or paint anything. So I think entry-level rules are good. But it's nice to step out there a bit more meat on it.
I should also add, having walked around and drooled over it, your game looks gorgeous.
Thank you, that's very kind of you.
Your games always look good.
Yes.
Never done. Well, it's...
the Karen game you did a few years ago?
Yeah, it was Battle of Karen a year and a half ago, the 1941 game. I think I like making terrain. Before I got a proper job, I ran my own business for 9 years, making theatrical props and costumes, and I've just always loved making stuff, so that's never really left me. And I think the Karen game was a bit of a chance to make something.
And how?
On my kitchen table. Well, it's not that
you
big.
You have a very strange shaped kitchen table.
It was 6 foot tall, wasn't it?
It's about 2.5 feet tall. But when you put it on a table, it stands the best part of 6 feet tall. No, that was just about trying to do a different kind of game. I like doing things that people haven't really done before. Not in a seeking out new territories kind of thing, but just I like going to shows. I really get inspired by lots of the things I see, lots of the model making things, but I want to do something very slightly different. I don't like to find a rule set where everything is written for me and I just get the army out of the codex and I paint it exactly like that with those paints. All my armies are full of converted models and vignettes and stuff, because I just like doing that, and I think it also brings it to life. It makes it a little bit mine. I always see modelling miniatures of it, I see them as kits, so whatever I'm doing I like putting different bits together, I suppose.
So have you had a chance for a look around?
Yes.
What's inspired you today?
Dam Busters, Mike. Definitely Dam Busters.
Oh, come on. Is the right answer.
I got to take a photo of my son's Captain America figure stood on the plane, stood on the wing of the Lancaster as it went in, obviously guiding it with American assistance. My son, who's 3 years old, put his Captain America figure into my box last night when I was getting the figures ready and said, "Daddy, take this with you to your Wargames show." So I've done that.
You can't argue, can you?
I like the Catch the Pigeon game. It's nice stuff, but there's when you look around, the standard of games really has gone up around the place. you go around your average show nowadays, there's a lot of nice stuff out there. And I'm not really into fantasy game, but you see a lot of good things out there on the science fiction fantasy market. But people generally just expect a higher standard of terrain nowadays, I think. And I think that's what inspires me to do it. I remember going to my first Partisan in 1993 and seeing the Perry twins and Jervis Johnson doing their Warhammer Ancient Battles game with Picts and late Romans, and it wasn't a very big game, but there was some beautifully modelled rocky outcrops and heathercopses on it, and I just thought, this is what I want to do.
I think it's getting better of late, but it used to be the case that wargamers weren't as good as terrain as railway modelers.
Yes.
And railway models were absolutely hopeless at painting figures.
Yes.
But it seems that we're picking up on the terrain front.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's been a lot more projects out there which enable you to do it.
Yeah, we are, 10 feet from Colonel Bill's.
Yes.
And the lovely smell of fresh cut MDF.
Yes. I've just been admiring the furniture they've got.
Oh, that's just fantastic.
I'm hoping to build a World War I fort next with the interior in 28mm, and I'm going to need some stuff to fill it out with, and they've got it there in buckets. So I was buying some things from 4D Model Shop recently, a company in London that does proper model making accessories.
I've used them.
Yeah, good. Absolutely brilliant. But the variety of chairs and stuff that Foreground are making is absolutely huge. And I'm sure it's mostly aimed at Wild West interiors, that kind of thing, saloon interiors.
Stuff. You could probably populate the entirety of that big stoic.
Fistful of kung fu, any kind of.
And Hobbsy will.
But my wife did turn around and say, "Why are you making a doll's house?" I'm not. It's a war game.
The stuff over there is basically doll's house.
Yeah.
Stuff for war gamers, but that's great, and it's nice to see that technology in there.
You want to be able to throw chairs around it.
The MDF vehicles as well, don't
Yes. No, I like the creativity that's going on in the MDF market at the moment.
Have you seen Warbase's Model T ambulance?
Yes, I have.
That's
yes,
lovely.
Scribs has painted a couple, and
straight in the home guard box.
Yeah, the part of World War I we're playing is no vehicle's got anywhere near to the section we're gaming on, but the vehicles are brilliant, and it's very tempting to get some.
Just costs. Yeah,
I think the cost factor is really good on those as well. Yeah. They're really affordable. But no, I love all the stuff out there. Scribs and I went to Crisis in Antwerp last November, and that was a real eye-opener in terms of the way the continent is set up, because the standard of terrain is higher than it is in the UK generally, going around the show, and there were a lot more stalls selling terrain. And I think this is kind of down to the fact that the continent, especially Germany, was very much focused on the model railway market. People who are into modelling got into model railway modelling because for the years after the war it was not acceptable to do most forms of military modelling.
Yeah.
And I very clearly remember staying in Germany in the 1980s as a teenager on school exchanges, and my exchange partner's parents were pretty liberal, quite forward thinking. They were very creative, but war toys and the kids had video games, but they did not have any of the Commando-style shoot-'em-up games. All that stuff was banned from the house. I was into Games Workshop stuff at that point, so I brought over some of the Chaos Warriors and stuff I've been playing. That was all absolutely fine.
But anything vaguely historical?
Absolutely. Yep. I don't know exactly what the family background was, but that they've got the history there. And I think the standard of German and Dutch companies we saw selling terrain and pre-made terrain was very, very high over at Crisis, and it was reflected on a lot of the demo games, and that is just filtering through, I think, to the UK at the moment. But yeah, I like terrain.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when Simon put out into the Strongest, where he has this little paragraph where it says, he reckoned that gamers spend an average of something like 10% of their time on terrain as opposed to what they do on modelling. But the problem is, when you look at a game, what do you see? Do you see your wonderfully intricate painted models, or do you see the board with your models in it?
Yeah, completely.
And what that impression is, I thought he kind of hit the nail on the head.
He's absolutely right. When you look at a game table, you see the square footage of what's on the ground, and I think as gamers we're liable to over obsess about the tiny details.
We joke
whether you paid the eyes.
The 2-foot test. painting figures.
But it's not a joke.
Honestly, it's not a joke.
No, it isn't a joke.
I mean, someone like yourself or Andy Hawks, those are beautiful figures. But at Wargaming range, you don't get to see all of it.
My standard of painting has gone down in the last 5 years, largely due to kids. So I've got 2 small children and time, but just it's also that realisation that it doesn't matter. I'm doing some World War I figures in 12mm at the moment from Callistra. Scribs and I are doing quite a lot of their done 1916 at the moment, and as an offshoot of the 28mm stuff, I've decided to do 12mm as well for big battles. And I've realised when you stick 3 or 4 figures that are 12mm tall on a 20 by 40mm base, what you see is the base. So I'm focusing on doing bases with shell holes that blend into the terrain.
And enough of a clue as to the uniform to tell what nationality they are.
Yeah, and the uniform is slightly caricatured to make sure you can see the difference between the blue and the field grey. Yeah. But it's very much about the base blending in with the ground effects. I think one danger of going too far on the terrain, though, is we like our terrain to be multi-purpose. And sometimes if you go too far with it, there's storage as well. Yeah. But if you go too far, but you can get into the mindset, this layout will only do for Normandy in 1944. I can't transfer this to Austria in 1866 or whatever, and it's trying to pick what are the good generic items. I've got some hills I made years ago that just get used over and over and over again. And I think if I was starting out again, I'd certainly invest more in those basics at that level rather than over-obsessing on command stands and individual figures. I remember 20 years ago or so at Partisan, I bought on the Bring and Buy an Arthurian army that really got me started off. It was a minifigs army, so every figure was taken straight out of Ian Heath's Armies of the Dark Ages book, 793 to 1066, whatever the dates were. And there were very few poses, the figures were very bland, but it was clear someone had bought a box of, 150 figures. They'd bought it on an army deal and had given up on it. And when you looked in the box, you understood why. They'd got a unit of 20 Celtic cavalry painted, and they'd individually painted the eyes on every figure, and they'd painted checks on the trousers of every figure in that unit. So I will say to quite a good stand as well, not just me checking a few tartan stripes, but they'd blocked out each check. And the army obviously been abandoned. You could see why. Yeah. Whereas you look at that nowadays, 150 figures, it's still a lot to paint, but you look at that nowadays, you go, okay, right, I'll place them on MDF bases.
Paging army painter.
Yeah, exactly. I'll stick them on MDF bases, save me the trouble of cutting my own bases. I'll probably put magnetic tape on the bottom, so that's cut to size. Yeah. I will spray them with Army Painter Leather Brown or one of the base coloured undercoat. That might work for base and some of the base colours. I will slap on some light coats. Probably using acrylics rather than enamels, as that guy was using back then. I will use one of the washes or an Army Painter dip or whatever. I will
dry brush some of the
I might use some shield transfers, and I will stick some tufts on the grass tufts on the bases, and maybe some flowers. And actually, you'd have a very decent looking army for the amount of time it probably took that guy
to paint one unit
to paint the checks. It probably costs more materials, but I think part of the cost of a Wargames army now is just the setup. Like Simon Miller, I've gone totally over to using really useful boxes. Yes, it cost me.
I should get them on the show.
I've just hit the point where I was spending this much time painting it. I want something that transports really quickly, that is safe from the children, that travels well in the car. So Wargaming now is just great. There just isn't enough time to do all the things you want to do. But no, thanks for listening to the show anyway. It's been very enjoyable.
Excuse me a sec. Thank you. Well, James, thanks for the chat.
That's all right.
It's been great to finally catch up with you.
Yes, lovely to meet you.
Understood.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Cheers. As he'll realise when he listens back to this, having just insulted him dreadfully for refusing to come on the show, we have a hello.
We have a
You insulted me. I find that hard to believe. That's my job.
No, we were just...
The things he was saying about you, Murph.
Well, it was just one of these things that kind of go, we just want to talk to us. Like, oh, come on, we're not that scary. Are we?
Yes.
So how have you found the show?
So
it's very good.
Hang on, before we go, let's just introduce you properly. Okay, this is Mervyn. This is the man with the cake from Derby. This is Mervyn Douglas.
Damn, I miss Derby.
Hello.
I get no credit for the cake. That was entirely down to the Mrs. Sue. So she gets all the compliments for that, I'm afraid.
But it's great. It's great to catch up with you again. And I suppose this is almost a local show for you, isn't it?
It's pretty close, yeah. We've had a show on and off in Norwich for years, but it hasn't been on for a couple of years now, so that's really disappointing.
Yeah. So how have you found it?
It's good. It's nice and easy to get to. It was a nice quick trip down this morning. Not all the big traders are here, obviously.
Well, half of them are prepping for crisis next week.
Yeah. But, there've been enough here to enable us to spend a few pennies. Colonel Bill's here, and that's always a bonus for me.
It's bad for the wallet.
Yeah. But the nice thing was there was a sort of trestle table sale, and, myself, Pete, my mate, and myself, we found those really good fun.
Yeah.
And it's nice just to be able to sell stuff face to face with fellow gamers.
This gentleman waving a pile of Kings of War elves in my face, which sadly I wanted, so...
That's all his fault, was it?
Yeah, I'm blaming him.
You see, that's what happens when you pay attention to people's blogs, because they mention I'm after some wood elves or elves, and I thought, I've got some of them.
The Kickstarter, as I said a couple of podcasts ago, the Kickstarter turned up not so long ago. They have a fairly large elf army, so more never hurts.
Yeah, can't do it. You can't have too many elves. Yeah.
So, what else have you been doing today?
Today, I've been playing Sharp Practice Volume 2 with Richard Clarke and the chaps.
Did you win?
Technically, no.
Lots of that about.
All right, so you did you? Yes, because as I mentioned, you took over my sausage seat.
I did. I've been trying to transfer sausages for most of the afternoon.
Yeah.
Not helped by the fact that with 2d6 I managed to move her 2 inches twice. So you're not going to get anywhere in a hurry that way, are you? No. But I did get well up the road. Unfortunately, the postman Pat, he got injured, he got wounded.
Oh, right.
Yeah. The Cossacks intercepted the cart, and in their excitement, they kidnapped Pamplemousse instead of the lady. When they realised their mistake, they come back and took vengeance on the lady. So my main man was killed and she was captured. So disaster all round, I'm afraid.
Excellent, that's what I like to say.
And what did you think of the Urals?
The Urals?
The new rules.
The new rules.
Not the Ural Mountains. The new rules, that's interesting. I think they're going to be an interesting development there, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they pan out. The only frustrating thing with that is that they do take forever to bring them out, don't they? We're still waiting for fighting season, we're still waiting for In the Buff, and
In the Buff? Is that still around?
In the Buff. Yeah. But once they come out, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
It's just we want them now, don't we?
I mean, we've already talked about it, but it does seem to be they've taken away a little bit of what slowed sharp practice down. Let's face it, sharp practice is a fairly old set of rules now.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, so they've taken what they've learned, especially in the more recent games.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's going to be a really fun. It's going to be a really, really nice. And it cracks along now, doesn't it?
It moves really well, and I think, like a lot of the things, it depends on the scenario, doesn't it? And it'll be interesting to see what kind of scenarios they come up with. No doubt there'll be a Sharp Practice Volume 2 scenario book to follow. Great stuff.
And what are you doing in the hobby at the moment?
Building Blinken 148 Tamiya kits.
They're great, aren't they?
No.
The modelling kits are millions of parts.
I've got to say, I say, and of course, a lot of these are the ones with the cast bases in the middle, aren't they?
some of them have got cast bases, some of them have got lead wet. You glue in the bottom of the bases, and failing that, I just use one piece. Failing that, I just use one piece. But some of those are trickier than others. Some bits are trickier than others. Yeah, it's good fun though. Good fun. I've managed to get all the cement off my fingers now, thank goodness. Yeah, but I've completed. I've got 2 pounds of 4s done and stout. Yep, so they'll be being undercoated soon. Yeah, spray paint them. But I do find German camouflage quite difficult to do. I'll send that to Pete on the way down. It's quite hard to, get that war effect properly. The blue and brown and green camouflage markers. So have you got any tips on that?
Well, funny enough, I was about to ask you the same question because that's what I've got to do next. I mean, are you brushing it as opposed to airbrushing it?
I don't know. I'm not airbrushing it. I haven't had an airbrush since I was about 16, and I don't want to go back to that again.
I use a stipple brush and do the double group first, and then I'll stipple on the other colours, and then I'll give it a light wash, and then a single dry brush. I don't dry brush each colour separately. I'll just do one dry brush. I'm trying to make it look dirty.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the key, is to make a mess
use a lighter
of it.
colour than you would for the
and just remember that the paints were applied by the tank crews.
That's
there is no scientific formula to it or anything like that.
That's it. And it was and although they had kind of allegedly stipulated patterns, even the colours vary depending on what they diluted the paint with. I think sometimes we get so caught up in it's got to be here's me having had this conversation last night. We get so you raising your eyebrows at me. We do actually get so caught up, and it's not just World War II. It's a lot of things with that. It has to be the proper colour, and as soon as you go through any sort of weathering, all the colours change. And still one of the biggest things I always remember is from reading one comment in a modelling magazine about modelling fighting vehicles, and said, tanks don't go over the landscape; they tend to go through it.
They get dirty, they get dusty, they get chipped. So it doesn't matter what colours you do, as long as you use the same colour for your weather, then you find it'll all match in.
Because it'll all just blend in, won't it?
I tend to use old Games Workshop bleach bone. It's very, very
light bleach bone.
And a big brush, almost like a makeup brush.
Oh, like a makeup brush.
Yeah. So I use a big 1 centimetre wide flat brush. And just it over the top of everything.
Over everything.
And that's how you got to do it. It brings it all back in.
Well, the other thing is, if you do make a mess of your patterns or anything like that, don't forget to slap on a load of
branches.
For the camouflage, because they did that as a matter of course, so that makes sense as well, doesn't it? And you can hide any indiscretions that way.
So, what an excellent idea.
I say that bush is moving over there. It's not a bush, it's a tiger.
I think everyone's packing up.
It looks that way. Yes, if you hear a lot of ambient noise going on, it does appear that we've hit that kind of 3:15 time on a Sunday. So
and everybody's off.
It does seem to be something that happens a lot at shows, isn't it? So you enjoyed the show?
Very good, and sold more than I spent, so that's always bonus, isn't it?
You got a few minutes if you want to.
No, don't tempt me. Is it my imagination, or were there going to be some board game reviews on Meeples miniatures coming
funny
out?
You should mention that.
How are they coming along?
If you were here about half an hour ago, we were discussing that a little bit. We were meant to, and it's unfortunately,
things happen.
We've been having scheduling issues, and then Mike keeps going. Mike keeps turning. It's all Mike's fault, because Mike keeps turning around and turns around and says, "Oh, it's really good that shall we have so and so on the show, and shall we have so and so on the show?" And I jest, but it is one of those things of fitting things in, and to be honest, and especially with some of the feedback we've been getting on in fact, some of these sort of shows where we've been doing conversations as opposed to a physical review, and it's something that people seem to enjoy. So, funnily enough, we got together in the pub last night, and we were discussing a little bit about show content for next year and this, that, and the other, and actually kind of maybe being a little bit more organised in what we plan to turn out, rather than because we try and be as current as possible, but at the same time, you do need to kind of, as much as possible, cover the bases you'll say you're going to cover. And yes, you're right in turning around and saying we said we'd do a lot more board game reviews, and I think since we said that we've done one, which was the Great War,
which is barely a board game.
It's got a board.
I mean, arguably to the strongest is a board game, but that's a contentious issue. We'll come back to that one. And we have got Heroes of Normandy planned to do, and we've had Heroes of Normandy planned for
about a year.
Yeah, several months, and just haven't got round to it. So yeah, I think you're right in saying we. At the risk of running out of being called Meeples, we do need to do some more. And we did promise Mark Lewis to come on the show and do regular board game reviews, and we haven't spoken to him since. So yet again, apologies to Mark.
Well, we could blame Mark for disappearing.
What, with the fact that he's been writing second edition rules and there's other bits and pieces?
There is that,
yeah. So we'll let him off.
Yeah, okay.
Second edition of one of my favourite games, so I'll certainly let him off.
Sword and Spear has been a terrific set of rules. It's sort of revived our interest totally in ancient
very much so.
Gaming,
So your point is well taken, and I think next year the plan is to try and be slightly less ad hoc, slightly more organised, to turn around and say, okay, in the space of a quarter, we will try and make sure that we get X number of this type of showing or X number of that type of showing. And Mike's looking at me kind of going, trying to organise me, trying to like Nick Fogg. But
I've given you a whole list of shows we can do about the end of February, beginning of March now.
Yes.
It's all sorted.
Yeah.
It's on paper and everything.
It's scheduled then.
That's another. But obviously that always runs the danger then of at the same time trying to remain relatively current with what's going on and being flexible enough to turn around to say, let's get 7TV on the show, for example, which is one of the ones they're going to be coming up next. But that was a very short notice thing that Mike turned around and went, spoke to Carl and said, because of the dice starter they're running, and went, do you want to come on the show? And I said, that would be a great idea. So we're getting them on. So there's always that little bit of tension when it comes to show scheduling. But point taken. Yes. It does say Meeples and Miniatures. It was Meeples and Miniatures for the reason.
I just thought I'd ask because I was sure that I'd heard it, and then I thought, maybe I imagined it.
No, you hadn't imagined it. I did say that. Unfortunately, we have failed dismally. So,
do you have any idea on the Sword and Spear Fantasy then? You haven't heard anything regarding that? Because you were playtesting that before, weren't you?
I feel beginning of next year.
Right.
I think Mark is working with Stuart from Great Escape Games.
Yeah.
So instead of having print on demand, Great Escape Games are now going to be producing the rules for them. The second edition, so to speak, is coming out next week or so. It's actually
imminently.
It's at the printers.
Is it?
So I'm hoping to get them on the show really soon. That's one of these emergency things, because I failed to completely take a hint when we had Stuart on the show. When he went, we've got Sword and Spear, and I just failed to completely ask him about it. So we've got to get Stuart and Mark on the show, hopefully.
The fantasy one, still a little bit of play testing going on. Most of the stuff is still on those. I think that's going to probably be after Christmas.
Good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming over and chatting with me.
That's all right.
And I apologise to your face for anything that you might hear about me casting nasturtiums at you.
Disgraceful.
It is terrible.
Thanks, mate.
Good to chat.
Good to see you again.
Yeah. Take care.
See you next show. Could be next year, probably, won't it?
Indeed it will, But it'll probably be Salute at this round.
Salute or Hammerhead?
Hammerhead. Hammerhead. Yes, Hammerhead.
Yeah, we'll try and go
there. Cool.
I think we have another guest lurking in the corner there.
That's my friend Pete.
Is that your friend Pete?
From the club, yeah.
Oh, yes,
taxi driver.
Ah, right.
And we're both called Cultural Cards in Norwich. It's a very friendly club.
It is indeed.
Yep, so come along, give us a look, anyone who's listening.
Cool. Hello, Pete. And
hello, Neil.
Yeah.
Hello, Mike.
Welcome.
I listen to your podcast on an irregular basis, I should say. It would be more regular, but it's normally when I'm doing a painting job, which only happens every few months.
I think that's where most people listen to us.
Yeah.
We just wind away in the background.
That's painting, decorating, not painting.
Yeah, not painting figures, decorating.
Oh, decorating.
Decorating.
One scale painting.
Yes. Of houses mainly, unfortunately.
What did you think of the show here then today?
I enjoyed it, partly because I bagged a great half the Roman army in 28mm
Did well,
for very little money, or relatively little money, so I was more than happy. And we sold some odds and sods on the Bring and Buy, or Bring and Buy tabletop sale. Yeah. We had a great game to the strongest as well, which I enjoyed.
Did you win?
I did.
Excellent.
I beat Simon. I think he let me win, but I enjoyed it. But I've been trying to get into it a bit more, but we struggled to get the club excited about it. I think I like it. I like the grid system and the none of that hassle about you 2 mil away, you've failed, I'm afraid. But I haven't been able to get everybody as excited as I am about it. So it's just one of those things. I do enjoy it.
It can be a hard sell, as you say, people, actually using cards, there's no dice and there's no tape measure, and they go, it's not a war game. But it's a great game.
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, I equally like Sword and Spear, though, I must admit. That's probably my top tabletop ancient rules at the moment, really. I must admit, I do like it.
But it's great, like I said a million times, that with the same figures you can play 2 completely different games, or 2 games that give you a completely different feel using the same figures. I mean, you can't beat that. One lot of terrain, one lot of figures, 2 great games.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting when we were chatting, saying actually Sword and Spear, to the strongest, almost needs a change in mindset in the way that you play. Because the first time I played it with Dave, and he was playing it as if you would play a standard ancient war game, if you like. And it seemed, and he was saying it seemed quite pedestrian, and he wasn't too sure. And they said they thought there was a few things missing. And then the next time we played it, we went, okay, let's play it as given a similar sort of look as if we were playing something like Command and Colours, and it completely changed the game.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I'm going to say this is really good. But it's a completely. It's just changing your mindset slightly.
There was some great subtleties in the game. Just having the 2 units in one square and being able to swap them around. And you do find out, or you do tend to have lines. There's not many games where an ancient game where you still are able to maintain that line going forward. Unless you do something Simon does, and he charges his king 3 squares forward.
What's wrong with that? I don't see any problem with that at all.
It seems to visually work better in 28mm. We played it both in 15 and 28, and we enjoyed it more in 28. I think mainly because of the card system. Throwing a card down next to a unit 28 seems it's more in scale than it is throwing it down to the next 15 mils. I know it's a silly point to make, but
it's a weird thing, because whenever we're playing 15 or 10 mil, we use the chips.
Yeah. So exactly the same. Yeah, we do exactly the same. Exactly the same in 6mm. We use the chits simply because even playing with mini cards against a 6mm figure, it would just look silly. So, but the chits look fine.
And we tried it with chits as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
With 15s,
Seems to work better.
We're just not sure that there's enough differentiation between the different nationalities and the different types of units in there when it comes to combat, when it comes to the movement and everything. Everything just feels a little bit too samey.
As you say, it's a level up in complexity, isn't it? It's a step back in complexity, and especially when you're comparing it to something like Sword and Spear, for example. It is a different type, a different level of game.
To me, that seems like a different level of game, the same way that bolt action is a different level of game from chain of command. And I would sort of say, Neil's looking at me.
No, I know exactly what you're going to say on that one.
I'm sort of saying, well, if I've got 3 hours and I'm going to play an Ancients game, then I would play to the strongest ahead of Sword and Spear.
On a slightly different point, did I hear in a recent podcast that Sam Mustafa's doing some Ancient Rules? Or am I dreaming?
Yeah. He is, and Aurelian, and allegedly they're going to be a board game. Now, the last conversation I had with Will Townsend, who he's producing it in conversation with in conjunction with PSC Games, was because I turned around to him and said, so how is the variable movement that you're used to in war games going to work if you're going to produce it in a board game? Because board gamers don't like measuring. And he kind of went, yeah, it's a very good question. That's a bit of a sticking point at the moment. So that was the last thing I heard.
So board game rather than card game in his sort of blinker style. It's not.
Yeah, well, I think they were trying to. I think the idea was to try and produce it as something that spread across both genres. But that in itself has its own problems, especially when board gamers are not used to free form movement. So basically you're looking at, it's either got to be a square or a hex grid. Whether that will suit what Sam's got in mind is difficult to say. So it will be interesting to see what he does with it. Obviously it's going to be sometime next year, but it'll be interesting to see what solution they come up with, or whether they even just turn around and say, actually, it's not going to work, or we'll just produce it as a war game. It's difficult to say, but it will be really, really good to see what he's doing. Because
and it's good to see an Ancients game that is just sticking to a very small period of time. Because most things have been too kind of clever, everything for 3,000 years. So having this is 70 years, and this is you're driving your career through that 70 years.
Yeah,
that could be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting what he does with it.
And Sam always does good rules. He always does interesting things.
Yeah, we just tried Longstreet for the first time a couple of weeks ago.
In Norfolk, we're many years behind anywhere else.
Yeah, we've had the rules around through years, but we just got around to playing them. We did find it was a little bit confusing, didn't we?
I would speak for yourself, but
it's me.
I thought alright, I thought it was quite good. And there was a few little things, but we hadn't read them properly, that's why. It's like all of us dive in and play.
We never read them properly, no. But have you played that one?
No.
Have you reviewed it?
Longstreet, no, because it's American Civil War, and I don't do American Civil War. So.
All right.
Maybe I should get somebody on who plays American Civil War so they can review it properly.
Do you play American Civil War? No.
Our Mervyn opportunities opened up for you now.
There you go.
Run the podcast.
I'll be in touch.
Right.
Discuss your fees later.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to come on and review them.
No, yeah.
What I might do is I might do a written review and then take it.
Oh no! That's
to have you on.
No, come on, Mervyn. You've broken your podcast cherry. You've got to come back on.
Oh, where?
Well,
on that note,
it's been great to chat, guys. Thanks for coming on, and
good work.
Thank you, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Excellent.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
See you soon. Thank you, Mike.
And there we have it. Lots of different things going on. Had a couple of great days, both at Lardy Day and also at Hereward Wargames Show. Thank you to everybody who agreed to come on the show and were willing to chat. Yeah, I had some great conversations. So thank you to everybody, and really hope you enjoyed listening to them. That's about it for another show. So all that's left to say is until next time, take care, happy gaming, and we'll speak to you really soon. Okay, cheers, bye. Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you want to know more about Meeples and Miniatures, there are several things you can do. First of all, you can visit the website at www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. If you want to contact the show at all, you can email me at neil@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. You can follow the show on Twitter. Simply look for M&M Podcast or click the follow us on Twitter button from the website. We also have a group on Facebook. That's the Meeples and Miniatures Podcast Fan Club. Again, follow the link from the website. And finally, if you want to help us to support the show, you can always donate to the podcast by clicking the PayPal button on the donate page, again found on the website. Once again, thank you for listening. I hope you've really enjoyed the show. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.